Welcome in. McElroy and Kubelik in the morning. Glad you're with us. 7 a.m. right here, Friday, September 27th. If you're listening over in the Georgia area, north or east, hopefully you are doing well down in Florida from the storms that came through. I hope everybody is managing okay from that. G-Mac, how you doing this morning?
I'm good, buddy. No internet here at the Town Place Suites, so having to go off the phone MiFi device.
Beautiful
which I think it'll be
establishment,
all right.
though.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's fine. But
Do you
yeah, I
have
think it'll
the
be all right.
do you have the actual two-bedroom suite, or do you have the bed and living room made into two-bedroom suite?
No, this is a actual two-bedroom suite.
Yep, we get those every time. And then there's one, I think it's on the fifth floor, all the way down, where they just put a giant king-size bed in the living room. And so I guess you can market that as a two-bedroom suite, but like you walk in and it's a normal layout for a hotel room, except there's a giant king-size bed right there. So you're just like, okay, we can sleep an
No, we
extra
don't
body in
have
here.
that one. I have just a normal two-bedroom suite. But yeah, I've stayed here probably 7 or 8 times. It's comfortable. It's fine. I don't mind this hotel. I just wish we had internet. I don't know what the deal is.
It would help. It comes in handy. Um, so does your flight leaving on time. But, that's just kind of where we are in the United States right now. Delayed again last night. Miserable. Not fun. And coffee spill on the desk into all the electronics this morning, first thing, too. So we are rolling here
Let's stay hot.
for our trip. We are, yes. And it was hot when the coffee ran off the table into my legs. That was also good. So, but hey, when you're working on 4 hours of sleep, what else do you expect? We got a lot of games to get to today. It's going to be a good show for you. Obviously, massive games in Auburn and in Tuscaloosa. I'm in Austin, Texas. Greg's in Oxford, Mississippi. Kentucky, Ole Miss, a game that we haven't really spent a ton of time on, and we want to talk a little bit about that one today. We'll get those in. You want to be a part of the show. We're hoping that Caleb will again. If you're out there, Caleb, we need your thoughts just on the weekend, just to be honest with you. 800-239-9569, 800-239-WJOX, get you into the show. You can watch us live on YouTube. You can also listen online, jocksfm.com. Let's just quickly get into that one, G-Mac. Is there a part of Kentucky's team that you feel will be most problematic for what Ole Miss presents tomorrow morning?
Yes, their defensive line. I think this defensive line could be a problem against just about anybody. I think it's a big part of Ole Miss's offense to try to run the ball when they have favorable numbers. And I think Kentucky's one of those groups that could stop the run with 3 or 4 guys and maybe not the same amount of numbers. I mean, the addition of Pop Dumas Johnson, the addition of Zion Childress at safety spot, like he's really athletic, get down really quickly. So I think that when you look at how they're kind of built, they're very stout against the run on the interior, and I think it's going to be very difficult for Ole Miss to manufacture a lot of yards on the ground. I think the biggest thing for Kentucky is that can they keep up against the tempo? Because they don't have crazy depth and they don't roll a ton of guys. That's the one thing that would concern me if I was Kentucky.
Yeah, are you with me that the Kentucky offensive line, they look better individually at times? Like Charlie Weiss Jr. described them to us last week. He said, I think we're bigger and we're stronger and we're more capable long term, but we're not better right now than we were a year ago. Ole Miss fans big mad at me for saying that their offensive line was not one of the best in college football. Do you kind of see that the same way as I do?
Yeah, I think they're fine. I think their scheme makes them probably a little better than they are, right? And I also think that their creativity in the run game doesn't really force them to latch onto people and move people. They just kind of have to get in the way. So I don't think how would Ole Miss fans know at this point? Like, did they get a good test against Georgia Southern? Like, when would they have been tested enough to be able to draw an adequate conclusion on what they have? They might very well be pretty good.
I think that's by birthright.
Not there yet.
Yeah, it's by birthright rooting for that team is how they know. So that's kind of how that goes and takes place. So.
Is it just historically speaking on precedent, like because they've just had great O-lines every year? I mean, it's like people were mad at us for Michigan, saying Michigan's O-line's not as good. Okay, well, they're not. I mean, I don't know what to tell you, but they have been. But just because you've always been doesn't mean you are today. I think Ole Miss might be better, but I don't know that yet. I can't say that with certainty. And I think it's the scheme that's always going to make sure that group doesn't become a huge issue. But at the same time, when you get in a playoff setting and you get in an SEC championship setting, that O-line, if that's leaky, is going to be an issue. Or is it going to be an issue? And I don't know the answer to that just yet.
I think too, when you kind of look at that group at the end of the year, we could be talking about it as one of the most improved groups in college football. And I think we could say the same thing about Michigan's group, as you just referenced them. You're watching that group again last night. It was either in the plane or in the airport on my 4-hour delay. I had plenty of football to get through and did get through a lot of it. I think that Michigan group is improving fast. Now, as you stated with Ole Miss, their scheme helps them a lot. It's things that, the blunt force trauma in which they can inflict on people more so than some others benefits them greatly. So, and it's one that the team that they were playing, I'm still not sure is very comfortable being a part of that. But either way, I think the Michigan group could be one we're talking about a little bit later in the year that is vastly improved also. So take us through some of the things that Brad White did against Georgia defensively, in the secondary especially. Is this scheme just too different, or can some of those things have similar benefit to what Kentucky wants to do on defense against this Ole Miss offense?
I think it can definitely cause problems. I'll tell you the thing about Brad White's scheme, or at least what he did against Georgia, that made it very, very difficult. As a quarterback, there are rules. There are certain rules and there are certain tips the defensive backs tell you. That's where your eyes go the second the ball is snapped. And I think quarterbacks, and this is a lot of quarterbacks, not all, but a lot of quarterbacks like to live in the things that are black and white. Like, for example, if a safety spins down, I like to know that, all right, that's cover 3 or man. If 2 safeties stay deep, hey, that's cover 2. If the safeties get wide, that's cover 2. If the safeties stay tight, that's quarters. If safeties both move together to their right, that's some form of cloud, like a 3-deep cloud in one direction or the other. So quarterbacks like black and white when it comes to coverage tells. And Brad White's defense, I felt like more so this year than the past, has been very difficult to decipher from the quarterback's standpoint. It's tough to tell what coverage they're in based on their safety movement. It's also difficult to tell, just how things are going to kind of unveil themselves. Is it man or is it zone? Like they play man on one side and zone on the other. Like they've done combo coverages. They've rolled safeties. They've looked like they were going to be up close, taking things away underneath, and then all of a sudden they drop back and get soft. He just makes you very uncomfortable as a quarterback, and he makes you indecisive because oftentimes where you throw it is predicated by what coverage they're in. So I would recommend to anyone playing Kentucky moving forward from a quarterback standpoint, going with pure progression. 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5. As opposed to, all right, hey, if it's 2 high safeties, work right. If it's 1 high safety, work left. Because if you're doing route combinations like that, it could get a little cloudy with which side you decide to work.
Absolutely. Some pretty big news involving, and that's Ole Miss, Kentucky. We'll spend a little bit more time on that one throughout the course of the day. But some pretty big news involving one of the 2 massive games that are happening in our state, GMAC, and that is the availability report for the Oklahoma Sooners. This is, first and foremost, some of these are unexpected for me personally. I don't have inside information as to kind of what happened with a couple of them. But for Oklahoma, wide receiver Jaden Gibson out. Jalil Farouk, he's been out, he's out. Nick Anderson, he's been out, he's out. Andrell Anthony, out. Deion Burks, out. DB Gentry Williams, Kendall Dolby, that's a big one in the secondary as well. I feel like he's one of the more aggressive players in the secondary, and the guy that covers a lot of ground.
Guy. What a brutal injury that was.
Garen Hatchett, offensive line, out. Tyler Keltner, kicker out. Hadn't seen the tape.
That one's
And then,
most vital right there. That's the one.
Listen, Deshaun McCullough, linebacker, questionable. Jake Taylor, offensive lineman, probable. Greg, from a receiver standpoint, Deion Burks alone is massive. I did not anticipate him to be downgraded to out, nor Angel Anthony to be downgraded to out. I do believe that Taylor Tatum at running back, I think Oklahoma people probably thought he was going to give it a go and be able to play. This is brutal for an offense that's going to be starting a freshman quarterback.
Brutal. And the availability report has been really interesting. Lane, I believe, has 26 guys listed on his. And 3/4 of them are probable, it feels like. So, yeah, it's hard. I can't say a lot of the Oklahoma guys are complete surprise. Burks got banged up in the game last week. Kendall Dolby had a gruesome dislocated ankle. Jalil Farouk's been out. Nick Anderson strained his hamstring again in the game last week, so that's not crazy. Like, it's not a huge surprise. It's just a bummer that none of those guys were able to get back. Not a single one was able to get back healthy enough to be able to be made available this week. So it stinks. It's hard. It's tough sledding for sure. But I've leaned Auburn all week, and this doesn't really change my opinion, because I think this is going to revert to more of a rushing style attack for both teams, and at least they're pretty healthy on defense in their front seven. That's encouraging. Outside of Dolby, which is the cheetah, but you knew based on the dislocated ankle last week that he's going to be out for probably the rest of the year. So just really tough sledding for sure on the road.
So you think Auburn is just Hugh Freeze kind of throttles this thing back, leans on the run. Auburn's availability report, by the way, Tyler Scott, Champ Anthony in the secondary, both out. No surprise on Champ Anthony after last week's injury. Braden Fraser, tight end, is going to be out. And then Isaiah Rakes, Alec McPherson, and Tutal Miller are questionable. So Miller would probably help some on that offensive line, I would imagine, even though when he's played, he's been a little bit up and down. Is this just we get the run game going, utilize quarterback's legs, try to play as safe as possible, thinking that there's going to be tough times for Oklahoma to score points?
I think some of that. I also think that with Auburn, they have a veteran quarterback. And I know people in this state people listen to this show don't think he's any good, but at least he's played in games like this a lot. He's played a lot of football. So he's going to understand, probably I would think a little bit better than the true freshman making his first career start, just kind of how this game is going to ebb and flow, what he might need to do, when you press the gas, when to press the brakes, things like that. So I just trust, as crazy as it sounds, I trust Auburn's offense a little more right now than I do Oklahoma's, which is nuts. But it's hard to feel great about a true freshman on the road in the SEC. I don't care what the circumstances are.
Yeah, you got a DB going to wide receiver. You got a couple freshmen probably going to play. I mean, this is going to be this is one of those games I'm almost anxious to watch just because I have no idea how it's going to go. There's a little bit of last week's Arkansas-Auburn game in this where there are things that I kind of feel good about and things I feel terrible about on both sides of the ball for both teams, and just the unknown raises the level of interest for me. And we'll see what the game plan is. If Auburn does decide to cut it loose against that front seven, which Greg mentioned is pretty healthy still, I don't know how high risk you want to be. And it could be one where Auburn really struggles to move the football because that group is good. And they can move on you. They can stun on you. Auburn has struggled with movement. They can win one-on-ones. Auburn has whiffed on one-on-ones. They can pressure you in different ways. They have edge defenders that are quick, fast, can get upfield. Auburn's tackles have struggled with that. I don't know what you open up in the run game, Greg. You can sit here and say, I'm not talking about you individually, but people can say, oh, Auburn turns to the run. They lean on Jarquez Hunter. Where do you open things up for them? Or your quarterback runs. Like, where does it open up? I mean, this front seven rarely out of position, and when they are, they have the speed to be able to make up for it. So, and then they can be fairly dominant up front individually inside. I don't know where Auburn finds yards against this group.
I think that's the biggest question mark is how long can Oklahoma's defense hold up? Because I love that group. I think they play their tail off for sure. You could tell Tennessee kind of called off the Dogs last week. when they got a little bit of a lead and got comfortable. Hey, guys, let's not screw this up. Let's just stay the course. We'll be in good shape, etc. So I'm really curious to see if Auburn can manufacture enough offensively. I think it's going to be tough sledding. I think it's going to be a super, super low-scoring game. And the best unit in the group is by far Oklahoma's defense. There's no doubt about that. But I do think Auburn might have the second best group in their defense and the third best group in their offense before I would put the Oklahoma offense in its current state with the unknowns at quarterback and the unknowns at the other positions. So I do think Auburn has a slight edge in what they have on offense, even though they've been their own worst enemy this year. I still think there's good. I've seen enough things by Auburn's offense to make me feel like there's enough in the tank to be problematic. Like, this can be a decent offense. They just need to be a little bit better in a few different places, like finishing routes, catching the ball. The line of scrimmage would be really nice if they could block a little bit more consistently, and quarterback make good decisions. I mean, it's pretty much as simple as it goes.
Absolutely. All right, from last night, Army gets to 4-0 on the season, by the way. Third time they've been 4-0 the last 30 years. 42-14 over Temple. Temple is now 1-4. There are parts of this that we could have saved for the final segment of the show. Plus 103 point differential for Army this season, most through 4 games since 1985, 7 sacks, most of the games since 2018. The rushing differential, guys, Army went 57 for 417. Temple rushed 22 times for -5 yards.
Yuck.
I don't know if we're going to get one a lot bigger than that. From a
Is that good when we do the Rube
standpoint.
Cube for Army-Navy? Will this game help Army's candidacy? Will it help Army's prospects according to the Cube Rube?
It's going to help them. We're going to debut the Rubik's Cube next week, and we'll be set to go there. But that would definitely bolster them. Now, 1,485 rushing yards through 4 games for Army, most since 2016. Quarterback Bryson Daly, not as much through the air, 2 for 6, 54 yards, but did go 24 carries, 152 yards, 3 rushing touchdowns. And Kane Udo, running back, 14 carries, 128 yards, and a rushing touchdown, a new career high for him. We've got some really good ones tonight, GMAC. Virginia Tech, Miami, 6:30 on ESPN. Tech 2-2, Miami 4-0, number 7 team in the country. And then over on Fox, 7 o'clock tonight, 3-1 Washington against 3-0 Rutgers in a Big Ten historical clash. I mean, that's one that's going to be good that we're going to spend some time on today as well. We got a lot of college football to get to at Mac and Cube. You can always be a part of the show there. Tweet in, let us know what you're thinking, what you want us to discuss. And remember, your HVAC system, one of your largest investments this time of year, constantly being pushed to the extreme. You can trust a Trane home comfort system to give you reliability and peace of mind day in, day out for years to come. Visit Trane.com to find a comfort specialist near you. And remember, it's hard to stop a train. All right, coming up today, Stanford Steve, 7:30, gives us his picks. Aaron Murray, former Georgia quarterback, 8 o'clock, talking Georgia-Bama. And we go Max Ball right after this on Mac and Cube in the morning. So in the break, we hear our man Orlando talking about Donato's Pizza for game day, and he says edge to edge pizza. I've never heard this before. I've never heard this vernacular. I haven't heard this description of pizza. That just means no crust at all anywhere on the pie.
I'm guessing that makes sense.
We don't know for sure, but that's what I'm leaning towards.
Okay. Would you guys prefer just a crustless pizza? What's the biggest difference? It's harder to manage, I guess.
In a weird way, yeah, it is a little hard to manage. Like I'm
Yeah.
a big Davenport's person, like a diehard Davenport's person.
Yeah, we know you give them freebies all the time. We get it. They're probably giving you free pizza by now.
They've earned it. No, I can promise you. Not only do I pay, they might charge me more in there. But I'm a big fan, and they do the, square cuts. It's not like your traditional pie cut pizza, and it does make it a little bit more difficult to eat. It's very messy. So the crust does keep it clean. I will admit that, but I still prefer the square cuts because I don't like the crust. I want every single piece to have deliciousness on it, and I feel like I can get that when it's cut a certain way.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you. I think the square pieces, for some reason, I have a mental block. But then when I went to eat lunch with my daughter the other day at school, I saw the rectangle pizza.
Yeah.
I almost broke down and got some. I was like, I just got to have it again.
You almost got to have it, man.
Like what we're dealing with here. Yeah, I didn't do it, but I was like, man, I just want to try it. And she didn't get it either, which I was a little disappointed in. But do your thing, whatever you want. But yeah. I think it's a mental hurdle for me of like I kind of need that. I don't know if that's like my vehicle for the pizza or I don't know. And I actually don't mind crust on certain pizza depending on which one it is. All you highfalutin fancy thin crust people out there. I don't know why you even waste your time on that bark or cardboard, whatever you want to call that crust.
So you just call it bark?
Bark or
cardstock maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, burnt cardstock.
I feel like cardstock is a mix between bark and cardboard, so I feel like that is appropriate. Yes, that's good.
Yeah, and they take a blowtorch to it for like a very limited amount of time, and then there you go. You got it. That's it. That's all you need right there. You're good to go. So, yeah, I got nothing for that. But some of your softer crusts, I think, can be used for vehicles for other things.
That I wouldn't
like
mind.
Extra marinara
Correct.
or whatnot.
The stuffed crust.
It's like all this. You just go. What sometimes can be a lot.
Correct, yes.
It gets heavy.
Yeah.
It gets heavy, but I'm not against it. Definitely not against it at all. All right, Georgia-Bama, Greg. I did our buddy Josh Pate show last night, and he asked me about the difference in coverages of what Georgia's going to see from last year to this year with this Alabama defense. I kind of did my best to describe some of it, but I want to know from you what part of it will be most problematic for Carson Beck in the Georgia offense.
Ooh, I think that's a good question. Because based on the most recent game, like recency bias speaking here, if I watched Carson Beck for the first time against Kentucky, and I had never seen him before, I had never, ever, ever evaluated what he is, I would think he's just average. I would think that he's a guy that can be easily fooled. I would think he's a guy that if you hit him, it will affect his play and his accuracy. And I would think that he's a check down Charlie, which means he will bypass players down the field potentially because he doesn't trust it in an effort to just, hey, let's just not make the risky play. Let's just get it out to an outlet and let my guy go get after it. That's what I would say if I watched him for the first time against Kentucky. So I don't know if that's who he's going to be against Alabama based on the fact that I haven't seen him just once. I've seen him a lot. I think he's going to be just fine. I also think that they're going to do a better job of implementing things that will not force him to see ghosts, if you will. Quick throws, pure progression throws, quick game, identifiable shot plays that are outside the numbers. He's done a really good job his whole career working the middle of the field. I don't think that's something that he wants to probably do right now because I think he can be fooled with where the safeties line up and where the safeties are. So if I were Kirby and Mike Bobo, I would have spent the entire bye week making sure he sees those gray area coverages and repping those gray area coverages, because he got talked out of a lot of it. There were 2 or 3 massive plays on the field that were missed, not because of accuracy. I can live with an inaccurate throw. You miss a throw, it happens. It is what it is. But just flat out passing it up is something that really is troubling and concerning. So that's what I would have spent my entire bye week working on. But yeah, Bama's coverages and disguises are next level under Kane Womack. Not right now as much, but when they move forward into the season against the best competition, Kane Womack has traditionally been the best disguiser in the sport. I mean, dating back to his time in Indiana, to the point where I did an Indiana game and told Kane this. I said, dude, I would hate to play against you because you are a very, very smart coordinator in the pre-snap, and then transitioning what your safeties and secondary players do into the actual snap. Like pre-snap to post-snap, you're getting a different look. So you better be prepared to get off your original plan. And I think Kane's one of the best at doing it. I think he's extremely thoughtful. And I also think he is a guy that can really give the quarterback a lot of fits without even touching him. And there's not a lot of defensive coordinators that can do that.
Absolutely. Please forgive the knocks on the door and the phone ringing. I asked for more.
I thought I heard a
coffee.
Train. I was like, aren't you in Austin?
I asked for more coffee to be delivered, and I said, if you could hang it on the door, that would be great. Please, I'm not going to be able to answer the door. And of course,
What'd you have delivered?
Some more coffee, the little coffee things to make in your room.
No,
we're struggling.
No,
we're struggling today.
Come on. You don't
I
use
wasn't
the
gonna. I'm not
coffee
getting.
maker. That's
I'm not
gross.
getting. I don't care if it's gross. I'm not getting up early on 4 hours of sleep to go get a Starbucks. All right, it's not that important to me. Just give me coffee.
Are you
and
in the
caffeine.
nice hotel?
It's the Hampton Inn, I think. Is that what this is?
In Austin,
Greg,
there's.
no.
All right, so
Hampton
there's a
Inn.
hilarious. The hilarious thing about the hotel in Austin is that I don't remember what the name of it is. But anyways, we've stayed there, gosh, probably 15 times. I'm surprised you're not there. Maybe they've changed this year because it is very awkward. In the hotel, there is a red side of the hotel where you're on the red carpet side, sir, and there's a black side, the black carpet, sir, and the red side is terrible and the black side is great. So our crew, like half the people would be on the red side and half the people would be on the black side, and it caused a lot of internal turmoil. So maybe they finally got it adjusted, but it is very awkward when they're like, hey, Mr. McElroy, you're on the red side this week. It's like, oh, no. So I'm glad you're not staying there. But it would make sense if...
This Hampton Inn is nice, and apparently, like, we could walk to the game from here. Like, it's like quarter mile, not far at all. So I don't know. It's cool. It's good. Football season has officially begun, which means you better be stocked up on Dale's seasoning in just 30 minutes. This ultimate grilling marinade will infuse your meats and veggies with unbeatable flavor, making every bite a game changer, whether you're grilling steaks, burgers, or mixing it into your favorite game day dips. Dale's versatility will elevate your tailgate spread from bland to bold. Don't settle for boring. Make Dale's seasoning your grilling MVP. When we come back, Stanford Steve gives us some picks for this college football weekend right after this on Mac and Cube in the morning. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Kubalik in the morning, 7:33 a.m. Friday, September 27th. And GMAC, everybody knows what time it's for every Friday. Our man Stanford Steve.
Stanford Steve's always brought to us by our friends at Atlas Senior Living, ATLAS, seniorliving.com. They do that weekly college football pick'em competition. You can get a $200 Amazon gift card. No cost to enter, and everyone is welcome. So sign up for the football pool. Please visit atlasseniorliving.com and click on the football banner. The overall season winner, by the way, will receive a $1,000 Amazon gift card. Like I said, Atlas Senior Living, with all the senior housing things that you could possibly want, serving seniors across the South, the locations in Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, and Tennessee, Mississippi, Texas, you name it. If you're in the SEC, you got it. I want to give a shout out to Melinda Hayner from Madison at the range at Madison, Alabama. She was the resident winner and the public pool winner. Clayton Bromberg yet again. Pretty amazing. Clayton stays hot, yet he doesn't give us any winners. Steve, what's going on, my friend?
Nothing, boys. Down in your neck of the woods. Pumped out to be down here. Got an incredible meal at Chuck's last night. Man, that place never disappoints. And we're ready to go. Fired up. It looks like
how many plates of
be
Brussels?
Clear. 0.
Oh wow, you're
too healthy.
Never mind. Cancel this out.
I mean, we got there and the plates of sushi were on the table, so it was time to go to work, boys.
Oh, so
who'd you eat with?
Mr. Davis was with us. You guys know Tom Engel and Matt Garrett. So it was good.
Wow.
Good, very good meal. Very good meal.
Very nice. Very nice
meal.
company, too. Excellent company.
Yes.
Thanks. Glad to hear that. I'm glad you had a nice meal.
Yes.
I'm sure you'll mix it up tonight and go back to Chuck's. Looking at...
Probably not.
Or are you going 5 tonight?
No, we're going to bed tonight. Fridays are no jokes anymore.
You're freaking soft.
Yeah.
We have big games
we got
tonight.
Ball tonight. Ball tonight, absolutely.
Yeah, we got an old school Big Ten slugfest. Rutgers hosting Washington. All right, let's start tonight. I do think there's a couple games that are intriguing tonight. This is what one of Miami's biggest tests. I thought Virginia Tech coming into the season had a chance to be pretty dang good. It hasn't really materialized. Miami, a healthy 17.5-point favorite. They have a tough time laying that many points against Virginia Tech. This is a desperate team. This is a team that absolutely 100% has to have at least a good performance to keep this thing interesting. So I take the points tonight, but man, it doesn't feel very comfortable, that's for sure.
No, and when you watch Miami, guys, I just think they've stepped up every time. Now, you mentioned the word desperate, Greg. You know, Virginia Tech's a team. A lot of people took the cheese with them before the season. When I went back and looked, they really didn't beat anybody that's a good football team last year. But it's a credit to them. You know, they won a bunch of games. They got to a bowl game. You know, they wanted to ride that momentum. But I just wonder about that offense. It seems very one-dimensional. I don't think they could throw it very consistently. Whereas on the other hand, Cam Lord has come in and done everything you've wanted from a quarterback. Gets them out of 3rd and longs, gets them ahead of the sticks on first downs. So yeah, that's all. The line is, I mean, I saw 20 early in the week, so it looks like Virginia Tech's got some money, but I think it's just people grabbing a bunch of points. I'm really interested to see what Miami does because they got a you mentioned classic Big Ten game. We got a real big ACC game next week with Miami going out to Berkeley.
This could be a good one. I got to ask you about this Auburn-Oklahoma line, just kind of what happened last night after the availability report, and then this total of 45.5. I mean, can you do anything but take the under here?
I don't think so, guys. You know, being in person, I mean, that's what I was so impressed with Tennessee last week was being there, you know, on the field pregame. I mean, you know, you guys have been there. It was built up. Like they were ready to be the difference in the game. But Tennessee came out, punched them, and matched that intensity. And Oklahoma's defense, I mean, they fly around. You know, there's constant communication. They made one hiccup, and that's the big play to Thornton. So what is Auburn going to do to do that? You know, between, you know, the 20s, it seems all right. You know, got some momentum going, but then just constant mistakes. And I think Oklahoma's going to force them into stuff tonight or tomorrow. And that's what scares me. You know, there's just not that no clicking or nothing for that Alabama offense. And you know that Oklahoma defense is going to travel. That's what they stand by. I'm sure they'll have some more quarterback design runs for Jenkins. So yeah, it's under or nothing for me in that game.
Over under
I don't know
23.
Hold
on, Greg. Hold on. This is like just a personal one I'm throwing at you here. I'm making this up. This is according to me, not Vegas. Over under 23.5 longest play from scrimmage in this game.
Ooh, I'll go over.
It's risky.
But it might be one play.
Yeah, because of DB slips. I can get on board with that.
Exactly.
Bama slight dog at home. Have some people that are pretty sharp that have suggested to me, I feel like we're getting Georgia on sale. I don't know if I love the matchup for Georgia with what Bama's transitioned to defensively. Yep. So I don't know how you don't take the home dog here in a situation like this. Which side are you on, Steve?
I'm on the Bama side, but Greg, I did have a question for you because last night I came back and just watched Georgia again, the offense against Kentucky, and I know you called that game.
Yes.
First off, I don't think Kentucky gets enough credit because of how good the defense was called. I thought Brad White was unbelievable in putting them in situations and forcing Beck to do certain things. So I wonder, if Womack can do that with his defense. But just about Georgia's scheme too, like when they need yards, it seemed like they were just constantly like running into coverage, if that makes sense. Like when they only sent 3, they're dropping the corner and safety, and the go routes just kept running into coverage. Like, what do you think Georgia does to change that? I know Georgia wants to come in and make Alabama prove they can tackle in space, but is it just less double moves? Is it just?
I think pure progression, man. Pure progression. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and avoid the.
Are you okay, Greg?
Sorry.
Yeah, I think pure progression. Avoid the half-field reads for sure.
Okay.
I mean, I think
Gotcha.
that's what you have to do, and then I think you got to commit to running the ball because the safety stayed back a little bit too deep, and I don't think they did a great job there.
All right, G-Mac's got to run and go to get up. Go ahead, Steve. You're good. We'll finish up on that one. Go ahead.
No, I was just curious. On the matchup, I just think now with Georgia's guys back on the defensive line, I think it's critical. The narrative around these two teams coming into this game. I mean, Bama couldn't have looked better, and Georgia could not have looked worse. So are you going to buy what you just saw for one game? I sort of do, because I do think Kentucky in that environment is equivalent to Alabama's defense. So what's Georgia going to do to offset it? They got to be even more dominant offensively. So what are they going to do against Alabama? I know Coach Saban tomorrow is going to dial up and show how Alabama designed quarterback runs in the SEC championship game to affect Georgia. And, with quarterback runs, you talk about it, Cole, all the time. It's to create an extra gap. You create another blocker, and then you have a great ball carrier with Milroe. So I'm fired up to see Coach do that. But I'm sure Kirby worked on that all in this bye week to make sure that he had coverage. There's certain downs you're going to spy, but I always say, too, with a spy or third down, if you're going to have a spy, he better be able to tackle the quarterback. And that's a lot easier said than done against Milroe. So it's ultimate chess match. I really can't wait. I mean, DeBoer in his first, game of this magnitude, just talking to people around here, like, when you go into that stadium, and it's going to be different than when UAB in Western Kentucky came here. It's going to be juiced up. Georgia's going to get an A-plus effort, and I know Alabama's going to get an A-plus effort from Georgia. So if you got all these, guys you want to get the ball to, the 5 stars and all that. So that playmaking's huge. But the idea of seeing Alabama have to tackle in space, that's what I'm most fired up for, because I know Georgia's going to try and put them in that predicament.
Well, and that's one of the areas I was going to go. Off that Kentucky game for the Georgia offense, 2 things stuck out to me. They tackled in space extremely well. Specifically, Maxwell Harrison. I mean, he was all over the place and did an amazing job. Not just him, but Dumas Johnson coming up and taking on blockers. The physicality at the point of attack was just next level for that defense. Zion Childress at safety was flying up to the football, making plays in the backfield at the line of scrimmage, and they won one-on-ones across the board. pass pro and in the
Yeah.
run game. Like there was one-on-one penetration all over the place. Like Rabibka was in the backfield, Keyshawn Silver, Deion Walker in the backfield, J.J. Weaver got a couple wins. And some of these Alabama D linemen have been coming on recently, like L.T. Overton against Wisconsin looked great. I was like, okay, he might be that guy. Tim Smith has flashed. We don't. Quay Russaw probably back. We'll see. But Jamarian Latham's been pretty good up front doing some things, and we know Tim Keenum is solid. I think that I might be morphing to that's the biggest key for Bama is because Greg talked yesterday about I think Bama's only blitzed like 4 times this year. If they can win like that with those guys and be problematic in the backfield, then I don't think you have to be super aggressive on the back end.
No, exactly. And then, like I keep saying chess match is coach speak, but just going back and watching Kentucky and how they screwed with that Georgia offensive line's eyes, too, when you walk those guys up and then you don't know who's bailing. And at least 4 times on critical downs, they mixed up the tackle. And the tackle either whiffed or he was just got caught looking at the wrong guy. And with Kentucky's speed on defense, Alabama has it. I mean, they're in the backfield in a second. So that I'm sure Georgia worked on a bunch of that stuff. Just I think it also called the idea of making it come inside out. Like if you're going to use your back, in certain situations to stay in, Beck's got to know where he's going and make that protection most firm where he's going to be going with the football. So it's not just a general, hey, we're just going to do your beloved slide protection. It's different. It's different scenarios as to see who they could come. And Beck can literally take the running back and put him where he wants. So there's definitely a lot of down-to-down situation stuff that's going to be awesome to see. But I do expect Georgia's offensive line to play better. I think they just got caught in the moment. It was Kentucky's Super Bowl. They were off a loss. So that's both lines of scrimmage. And Alabama, Alabama's O-line and what they can rely on. That was the group going into Wisconsin that they wanted, that they thought they were going to have all off season. And they went up to Madison and kicked the Badgers around like nothing. I don't think they're going to be able to do it to that pace, but how effective are they going to be? I can imagine Georgia's going to have some wrinkles up their sleeve too with pressures and stuff like that to keep Milroe in that pocket. So it's awesome, man. You got every single angle. You got playmakers on the field. You got quarterbacks that have played in big games. But everybody around Georgia, too, has been talking about Carson Beck and when is he going to let it rip? And, people that go to practice, we know we have confidence in our wide receivers. They're playmakers. We got to just let them get the ball in space and see what they can do. So a lot of onus on the quarterback, which is expected. But what's that defense on the other side going to do on both sides is just fascinating to me. So I cannot wait for this matchup tomorrow.
And Steve, we're up against the break, but quickly, you mentioned Coach Saban tomorrow. Breakdown of installed quarterback runs of the SEC champ. That's must-see TV for me. Like I got to see him break down what they put in for Milroe. Like you talk about, all right, game day, I got to see that. I got to be there. But just give us a quick synopsis of working with Coach here first couple weeks of the season.
It's been incredible. Just the thought process he's put in because, I brought up in our meeting, do you want to show – what Milroe's done and how the pass game has changed with Coach DeBoer and his staff taking over. He's like, no, that's too hard to explain. Let's get into the run game. I could show what we did because he said we specifically put these plays in to offset Georgia, knowing we thought we had an advantage, and we have more ways to get the ball in Jalen's hands. So I can't wait to do it. He's been awesome at it. Had a breakdown of Arch, the good and the bad last week. So it's smart football, Cole. There's nobody better, and I learn something every single time I talk to him. It's been such a pleasure for every week to be able to sit in the room with him.
I can imagine. Steve, appreciate it, man. We'll catch up next week.
You got it, my man.
All right, there we go. Stanford Steve. He joins us every Friday. Thanks to our friends at Atlas Senior Living. Go check out Atlas Senior Living today. And we will be back with more Mac and Cube right after this on Jocks 94.5. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Kubelik in the morning, 7:51 a.m. Friday, September 27th, right here on Jocks 94.5. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Stanford Steve, great stuff there talking Alabama, Georgia. I'm excited to see that breakdown by Coach Saban on some of the Mill Road design runs they put in for the SEC championship game, because we know that was one that Alabama physically was dominant in that game. And I can remember talking to Coach Saban on the field after that game, right before he went on set with SEC Network. He came over and he was asking me about the game, and he said, man, they stayed up and too high, didn't stack the box. And he said, I did not expect them to do that. So we went at them, and there it was, and had that kind of success. Can Alabama have similar success on the ground in this game? I think the availability of Warren Brinson, Michael Williams going to be big. I actually think Brinson is a little bit bigger in this game. I think Warren Brinson's availability and how he can play, how he's able to play, how much he can play, because this Georgia D-line is not – it's not what it once was. And some people maybe say that it's just not great, not good. I wouldn't say that. But they don't have those anchors like we're used to seeing them have. Guys that can just sit there and take on double teams, take on blocks, make life miserable, strike and shed. Nazir Stackhouse doesn't play super heavy like that. Christian Miller doesn't play extremely heavy like that. He can penetrate and disrupt. So I'm interested to see kind of Jordan Hall same way. He's not that sit there and be that immovable object, that boulder, so to speak, in the middle of the defense, which could be so problematic if you did want to run right at him. And this is not the group I think you're going to have a ton of success getting to the outside on with C.J. Allen, Jalen Walker, Raylan Wilson. It's just not there. There's too much speed there. It's not going to be able to happen. So excited to see it. I think it's going to be a hell of a game. It's going to be a fun game, but it's one that could go a lot of different ways. One that a lot of different things could happen, could take place based on, like Greg's talk about that coverage for Georgia or for Alabama. How different is it going to be? Can they throw Carson Beck off? I just mentioned what Kentucky did up front, some of the individual wins that they got along the defensive line. Can Alabama do similar things there and force Georgia to maybe keep an extra tight end, extra running back in to give him that protection? Then obviously it makes it easier on coverage. Alabama hadn't had to pressure a whole lot this year. They've also been in comfortable situations. Might not be as comfortable in this one to be able to generate offense or defense and kind of see how that goes. So a lot of it going to be fun. Aaron Murray's going to break it down with us on the other side of the break. The former Georgia quarterback gives us his thoughts. He's also had Auburn this year and done a couple of breakdowns on the Auburn quarterback situation. So we'll ask him about that and just what he thinks, where Auburn even goes offensively. You know where to go if you need a new home, though. That is Gusty Gulas and the Gusty Gulas Group. Call 205-542-1996 today and let Gusty Gulas and the Gusty Gulas Group begin to work for you. Since 2012, Gusty Gulas Group, recognized both nationally and locally as Greater Birmingham, Alabama's #1 team in homes sold. Gusty Gulas Group serve more than 3,000 home buyers and sellers in the Greater Birmingham area. All you got to do is Google Gusty Gulas Group, and you're going to see over 830 five-star Google reviews. You can pick up your phone right now, go to GustyGulasGroup.com, click the button at the top of the page. Very little information. You can find out what your home is worth right now, thanks to Gusty Gulas and the Gusty Gulas Group, because most agents, they're going to start marketing after you list with them, not Gusty Gulas. He's already been doing that. Call 205-542-1996 today or visit GustyGulasGroup.com. That's GustyGulasGroup.com and start packing.
Hey,
Auburn,
Cole,
Oklahoma.
Hey, Cole, I got a question for you on the Georgia matchup. I know, losing Brock Bowers last year was going to be big, but do you think Georgia has a quote-unquote takeover guy on the offensive side that could, possibly kind of make it interesting for Alabama defensively?
I do. I think I have a couple. I mean, depending on how you wanted to use him, I think Dominic Lovett can be that guy. I think Colby Young could be that guy. I think ATN could be that guy. But if ATN's going to be that guy, then you need to control things at the line of scrimmage. Because even though he can hurt you on the perimeter and catching the ball out of the backfield, if he's going to take over the game, he's got to do it carrying the football as well. And he's fine between the tackles. And I know he's not big in stature, but look what Nate Noel's doing in Missouri right now. Mm-hmm. He's not a big guy. But he gets going on that stretch play, and he makes it happen. So I think there are a couple, but it's interesting, Damien, because I don't think that they have felt like they've needed to force anyone into that role,
right,
like they did Bowers a year ago. So have they considered trying to do that with anybody this year? And maybe there's something they see in the Alabama defense where a certain individual will get more touches, more targets, and have more opportunities to become that guy for the Georgia offense. We'll talk more about it on the other side. Like I said, Aaron Murray knows this rivalry well. We'll get his thoughts on it. He's broken down the Auburn quarterback situation. We'll ask him about that and begin to break down that game as well. All when we come back right here on Jocks 94.5. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Kubelik in the morning, Friday, September 27th, 8 a.m., right here on Jocks 94.5. Listen online, jocksfm.com. Apps in your app store. Search that for free. Listen on the app. It'll take you right to the YouTube page to watch. It'll take you to the podcast of anything that you may have missed. If you just missed Stanford Steve, talking about working with Coach Saban and breaking down some of the lines for some of the games, brought to you by Atlas Senior Living. You can go get that. You can also just listen to the show live if you need to as well, all right there at the Jocks app. Tell your home smart speaker, enable the Jocks skill. You can do that. But if you're rolling into the office or you own a restaurant, store, whatever, just start clicking the YouTube page every morning and keep that on your TV and getting that going for the folks that are coming in there. We appreciate that. All right, Stanford Steve was great. We'll get Aaron Murray here in just a moment, G-Mac. But before we move on to Aaron Murray, if folks are looking to move in and out of a new home, who should they call?
That would be our friends at Crocker Moving Services. They're a local company owned by an Iraq War veteran, Eric Crocker. Crocker believes in hiring moves you can trust to complete full background checks and run drug tests on every single employee. These are good guys, and you can trust them in your home. Whether you need your whole home packed up and moved, your company headquarters moved across the country, or You just want them to come rearrange your living room. These guys got you covered. They also do deliveries for furniture that you've purchased and need to get to your home. So call or visit them online today for a free quote. The website is CrockerMovingServices.com. That's CrockerMovingServices.com. Support your veterans by choosing Crocker Moving Services for your next move.
All right, so Stanford Steve, Greg, I think you missed it. You were doing Get Up. He said that Saban is going to do a breakdown of the quarterback runs they installed versus Georgia on game day tomorrow morning. And I'm thinking, I got to see this. Like, that's Coach Saban, Telstrader, breaking down runs, because we know what the run game was against Georgia in that championship game. I mean, it was dominant. So, I don't know. I'm excited to see that one.
Yeah, I think that'll be appointment television for many. I feel like a lot of the stuff that they've used this year, though, I'm not saying that it won't be applicable, but the run game stuff that they're using right now is a lot of quarterback boss, which I really like. I think it's a really good run for Jalen's skill set. Live on the perimeter, get outside the tackles. And by the way, it's like basically quarterback sweep with a lead blocker.
Yep.
And when you say boss, it's back on secondary support. So basically your running back becomes kind of like your fullback. So they're blocking the secondary player that's spinning down to try to tackle the quarterback. So you account for that overhang already. So I think it's a play they've probably run. Gosh, they've had some big hitters on it against Western Kentucky, against Wisconsin a couple times. Like, they've had some real big hitters on it. They hit it on, it got called back, but they hit it on one against South Florida. They've probably run it 7 or 8 times already through 3 games, and it's really been good for them. So I think they leaned into that. But I also think there's some variations of that you can kind of hit off of it too. Now, hey, the back bluffs that safety, and he gets behind the defense, and Jalen fakes the quarterback sweep, commits, gets that safety to commit, and then boom, dump it over the top. Like, there's a lot of stuff that you can do off of that as well.
Yeah, I've said it on Read and React. We showed it, that read toss that Ole Miss runs. Bama's got that going. They haven't thrown off of that yet, so I'd be looking for that soon. It's got to be coming at some point. You're obviously going to wait and see how they're playing it, but if Georgia's flying down to the box, that's going to be one that you could potentially hit up top as well. Speaking of Alabama's offense, I'm just really – I said with Steve, and I think I've said this with you before, Warren Brinson to me is massive in this game because you now have the offensive line that you wanted. You showed the ability to go north and south between the tackles against Wisconsin. And I think you need those anchors. I think you need those big bodies, those boulders, those immovable objects inside. And he's kind of the only one of those that they have, Greg. And it's not that the other D tackles they have aren't good or can't play, but like Stackhouse not really that guy. Christian Miller doesn't play super heavy like that. Like Jordan Hall's not really that sort of anchor, I mean, I don't know if that guy's there.
If you look at how Bama mowed Stackhouse off the ball last year in the SEC championship at least 4 times, that would not be the guy I'd want to anchor your front. I think Brinson is their best interior defensive player, but I still don't even know about him. Like, I think having Jordan Hall back would be big. You have a couple freshmen in there that they like, but man, young. They're young. Xavier McLeod's one of them. So I think they have good personnel on the inside, but this is a different Georgia defense than the one that we saw in 21 and 22. They're not as stout. They're a little bit more disruptive and athletic. And I'm just asking you this, Cole. Like, athleticism has kind of given Bama some fits at times along the D-line. Granted, those South Florida defenders were like bullets flying around, man. Trying to catch those guys is impossible. This Georgia team, I don't think they're going to be the type that wants to move around and create issues. They're going to try to play Bama head up, and that was not beneficial to their plan last year. So do you dare, if you're Kirby Smart, Glenn Schumann, this defensive staff, start going with some movement along the defensive line? Because that's what Bama's struggled with.
Probably. I don't know. Let's ask Aaron Murray how he would handle that situation. The former Georgia quarterback joining us now on the Buyers Right hotline. You can see him calling games for ESPN. Staying with that Georgia defense, Aaron, when you see what might be there, what we think is going to be there, how do you view the matchup against this Alabama offense tomorrow night?
I think for me, there needs to be more of an aggressive nature for Georgia in this football game. You know, I kind of felt like last year at times it was a little of a, hey, let's just contain Jalen. Let's just try and contain this offense. Let's try to keep him in the pocket. Let's try to make him a thrower. Like this big narrative that, like, you know, Jalen obviously is not, you know, elite guy from throwing the ball intermediate, but let's force him to do that, and we're going to find a way to be successful. Where, you know, he's too good, man. At the end of the day, like, he is a premier quarterback, a premier athlete. I do think you've seen some improvements as a thrower early on this season, where if you play a little bit more quote unquote defensive and just go in the mindset of contain, he's going to beat you, whether that's what Greg was talking about with the boss play running the football, whether that's when things aren't open, of him extending it. Because, I mean, you can have a spy on Jalen, and that guy may get him once or twice, but he's going to beat him, and he's going to get a 20, 30-yard run with his legs, if not more than that. So, to me, I think this is an almost of a mindset for Georgia of, hey, we're on the road. We're going against, I would say, schematically a better offense. We need to play a little bit more balls to the wall. Like, I want to see a little bit more 5-man rush, 6-man rush, you know, go a little bit more, you know, bear style front, where we're just going to create a bunch of one-on-ones, and we're just going to get after them. And we're going to play not extremely reckless, you know, still trying to, you know, play as disciplined as you can, but you need to get after him. You need to make him feel a little bit uncomfortable. Make him go in the pocket a little bit more east and west instead of just sitting there, nothing's open, and then just finding a lane and taking off. So I would flip the script from what was done a year ago and try, like I said, be a little bit more in the offensive mentality on that defense side of the football and see if you can make them a little bit more uncomfortable in the pocket.
How do you assess the Georgia defense in general? Just generally speaking, I don't know about their secondary yet. I think Georgia fans seemingly think that their secondary's, you know, probably the best one in not just college football, but maybe the NFL as well. I think Malachi Starks is amazing. I just think Dalen Everett was a liability last year, and I don't know if he's Kamari Lassiter. The other side, I don't know yet. You know, I think there's some unknowns there in the secondary. So how do you feel about that group in general, and really kind of at all three levels of the defense? How do you think they'll fare?
Well, I love the front seven, especially if you get healthy. If Michael's playing and Warren's playing, you know, you can add some more depth. I think the front seven's going to be pretty damn good. So I'm with you, though, on the back end. Like, I don't know. I haven't talked to many people who have expressed that kind of confidence in Georgia's secondary, besides maybe, you know, Malachi back there and obviously him being, you know, a premier safety. I think there's a lot of excitement for KJ Bolden with how well he started the season. Obviously, there was high hopes. And will continue to be high hopes for Janelle, the nickel position as well. But, you know, when you lose three guys to the NFL that were playmakers from Kamari to Javon, who was great both at the nickel and the safety spot, you know, you're going to, you know, maybe talent-wise not take a massive step back because Kirby's recruited those positions really well. But just like game experience, it's just not there yet. So, like, I'm with you. Like, I'm sitting back waiting to see, you know, is this unit really good? I think that's for both teams. Like, I think both teams defensively, offensively, the trenches are good. All offensive lines are great. You know, front sevens are good. To me, the question marks are receivers for Georgia. Question marks for Alabama are receivers on the outside. And I know everyone loves the freshman guy on the outside, Ryan. But and then defensively, same thing. The question marks are youth in the secondary for both teams. How do those guys fare in a big-time environment? Can they go out there and make plays? Can they stop the explosive plays on the outside? Georgia is yet to face an offense that can do that. I mean, hell, Greg, you go back and watch the Clemson game. Klubnik missed 3 or 4 shots down the field where his receivers got on top of Georgia's DBs, and he took like a second or third hitch. The ball came out late. It was underthrown. I mean, there was 3 or 4 explosive plays, 30, 40, 50 yards down the field that he missed. He has then since gone and made those corrections, and you've seen that Clemson's offense, now be more explosive through the pass game. But, yeah, there's definitely some yards to be good against Georgia's youth in that secondary. Those guys have to play better, and I think, like I said, that's on both sides. You know, Alabama's defense, Georgia's defense, those backs could be tested throughout the ball game.
Aaron Murray, former Georgia quarterback, joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline, talking Alabama and Georgia. Aaron, I'm not trying to say that it's to the extent that, say, the A&M offense was last year, But there are times that I feel like Coach Bobo, and it's understandable because the players are just good. Like, you're more talented than almost everybody at every position, but it almost feels like he's just calling plays at times. And there's not a lot of searching for matchups. There's not a lot of forcing eye violations or misalignments, things of that nature. Does he need more creativity to win this football game?
I don't know if he needs more. I mean, I need a little bit more aggressiveness, and I think that's partly due to Carson as well. I mean, Carson's been a guy that at times to me has been a little bit shy to take some risk. You know, there's been opportunities this year, like on a couple deep crosses and post routes where, you know, he's and I applaud him for this too. You know, I love the fact that Carson can, you know, pre-snap essentially eliminate some of the progression. Just say, okay, you know, based on the coverage, I'm probably not going to get one. I'm not going to get two because the linebacker's dropping. Let me just find my back and take the check down. And, you know, he's really a fast processor, but at times he could be a little bit too quick where, you know, he can kind of get through 1 and 2 and with that offensive line, maybe have given that guy a split second longer to create an explosive play down the field. So I think this is moments where Carson needs to be a little bit calmer with his progression, take some more risks, take some more chances. You know, once again, not just going back to the defense, like don't play reckless, don't force the ball when it's not there, but you have to be able to be willing to put the ball in the tight windows if you're going to want to move the ball against a defense like this on the road. So he's got to be more aggressive. Yeah, Bobo's got to call plays to be more aggressive. But offensively, like I need to see a playmaker emerge. Like who is Georgia's go-to guy? And I don't love this narrative like, oh, Georgia's got, you know, 4 or 5 guys and they're just going to continue to spread the wealth. Like, yeah, that sounds cool and all, but like as a quarterback, I need to know who's my AJ Green, who's my Malcolm Mitchell, who's my Tavares King. I'm naming a bunch of Georgia receivers for those Alabama fans that are listening right now that were kind of like my go-to guys. Like third down, crunch time, big time opponent, red zone. Who am I going to? I don't know if Georgia has that guy right now. So to me, if there's 2 playmakers, quote unquote playmakers that need to really solidify their position in the game for Georgia, one is the running back position. Like Trevor Etienne is a guy. I do believe he's going to be a special running back for Georgia this season. You saw him get the bulk of the carries the past couple games. This is his chance to really make a statement that he is an elite SEC back. He needs to have a big-time game. And then from the receiver standpoint, I think it's going to be Dom Lovett. Like, Dom is going to be the guy. It's a matter of when is that moment going to happen. This is the perfect opportunity for him and the offense. I need to see him solidify as, hey, I'm receiver one. I'm going to go out there and get 6, 7 catches for, 90 yards and a touchdown. And I think Georgia needs some of these playmakers to kind of separate themselves from the pack within their units and go out there and have themselves the ball game versus Alabama this weekend.
What do you make of Georgia's, I guess, I don't like to think about it that much because I think it's kind of dumb and I think it's situational and circumstantial, but it does appear like, for whatever reason, the mental edge in this game in favor of Alabama is real. I don't know why, because I watched Georgia against Bama, and there's things that they do against Bama they don't do against everybody else, and I don't know why that is. So from your perspective as a Georgia guy, have you sensed that there's an edge that is an additional hurdle that Georgia needs to get over?
Oh, 100%. I mean, there's been multiple times the past couple of years that me as like the fan analyst, I've gone into this game saying like Georgia's the better football team. What was it, 2-3 years ago, SEC championship game? I remember going to it, and I even felt like Alabama fans thought that Georgia was a better football team because it was probably about 70-80% Georgia fans, and Mercedes-Benz, and obviously it's going to be more Georgia fans just being Atlanta, but like it was kind of like Georgia, Alabama saying, okay, you guys got the better team, we're not even going to show up, and then Alabama wins the football game. I don't know what it is. I don't know if Georgia's just making it too big, like making the moment bigger than what it needs to be. But yeah, I would say like major advantage Alabama for the past decade plus. And maybe that was, maybe it was just a Nick Saban advantage. Maybe we can say all we want about like, the brands of Alabama, Georgia, and that being the big deal. But let's not forget that like Nick Saban is the greatest coach of all time. And while we're quick to rush Kirby as the greatest coach or the best coach in college football over the past 2 years because he won back-to-back national championships, that was still Nick Saban on the other sideline. And we could, I was guilty of it too, saying, oh, there's a 1A, 1B of coaches in college football. No, that is still Nick Saban, and that was Nick Saban, and he is the GOAT. And to me, that was more the advantage of just Alabama over Georgia, brand, mentality, that sort of thing. So now the question is, can, Kirby solidify himself as truly the greatest coach in college football today, right now, or is there still some sort of issue between him and Alabama? I don't know, but this is a big moment for him, I would say. Like, all the narratives of this football game this weekend, I do think, Kirby kind of solidifying himself at the top of the mountain is going to be one that I'll be looking out for.
All right, you've done a couple breakdowns of the Auburn offense the last few weeks also. Just want to get your thoughts, not even necessarily against this defense, but just in general, what you feel about the quarterback situation moving forward, and are there repairs in sight for this offense in general to be able to find ways to consistently move the football?
I do think there's repairs in sight. I mean, you got playmakers. I think the receivers are obviously better than they were a year ago. You got a talented running back. I mean, it's self-inflicted wounds from the quarterback position. You can't have 8 interceptions on the season this early on and feel really good about the key position in all of college football. So, I struggle with this because, I think Payne Thorne has shown some really good stuff over the past year and a half at times where you're like, man, like, why can't you just bottle that up and play like that all the time? But at some point you just got to say, like, he's too inconsistent to really trust over a multiple game stretch where, I know Hank last week, a couple of those interceptions were on him. There's talent there, though, and I would. Do you bet on the future and be willing to say that, hey, we're going to have young freshman mistakes at times, and we're just going to say, hey, you know what, we're just going to continue to develop him and hope that the passing attack continues to evolve. I really don't know what Hugh's going to do, but from a schematical standpoint, when I've kind of looked at Auburn over the past couple of weeks, there's been multiple times where I'm sitting back watching the film and just the spacing, the overall concepts. Cole and Greg just don't make a lot of sense to me. I mean, I think this was maybe 2 weeks ago versus Cal, where there's 2 or 3 times where I'm watching the tape and there's a backside curl route and the running back sitting down, essentially in the curl window. He's sitting down where that safety was rotating down to be the curl flat player. There was no stretch on the defender. There was another time where you're running crossing routes and the running back sits down right where the middle linebacker is. So, multiple guys can be covered by one defender. So I just don't know at times what's being taught. If that's being taught, it's kind of a head scratcher, or if it's just not getting through the players to go out there and execute the offense the way it should be. But, from a quarterback standpoint, like, I think both guys have talent. Obviously, Payne being more of that dual threat runner. But, I would kind of lean a little bit more towards Hank and just developing him and seeing if you can get this passing game a little bit cleaned up schematically, and hopefully that helps with the execution from the quarterback as well.
All right, there you go. Aaron, great stuff, man. Thanks for hopping on. Appreciate the insight to both the Auburn offense and this Alabama-Georgia game. Have you made a pick for Bama-Georgia? You know which way you're going? I
mean, obviously, you know which way I'm going. I'm going to pick Georgia. It will be a close one. Not as confident as I've been in years. If when I picked Georgia to win, like I said a couple of years ago, I was very confident, and that ended up biting me in the butt. So obviously, Dogs win in a classic, one of the best games of the season, and we'll be excited to watch it tomorrow night.
There you go. All right, we'll catch up soon, Aaron. Thanks for the time this morning.
Appreciate it, guys. Safe travels this weekend.
There you go. Aaron Murray, former Georgia quarterback, joining us on the Virus Ride Hotline, breaking down some games coming up this weekend. You're probably not worried about your yard this weekend, but you do need to be worried about it for the next time it warms up, because dormant months are coming. Cold weather is going to be here soon. Now's the time you begin to treat that. So you make it through those cold months, and then your yard is ready to be green, lush, weed-free, barefoot good. And Wayne's can help our listeners get there, Greg.
Wayne's will give you that first month free, too. If you sign up right now at 866-WAYNES1, visit callwaynes.com. That's 866-WAYNES1, visit callwaynes.com. Get you that first month free if you go and do it right now. That lawn is going to be great, and you got to get the nutrients in the yard before the dormant season. 866-WAYNES1, use the offer code JOX, that's JOX, or at callwaynes.com, and let Wayne's continue to create your happy place.
All right, when we come back, get into a couple of other games coming up this weekend. More Max Ball right after this on Mac and Cube in the morning. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Kublik in the morning. Going to roll into some Max Ball here. Maybe give you a couple of picks. Two games specifically that I want to discuss outside the SEC that we didn't get to Stanford Steve with that I feel like need to be discussed because they are the lines are just odd, straight up. Don't know another way to say it. Before we get to those, G-Mac, tell our listeners about Polar Bear Services.
Polar Bear Services does so many things for me around the house, man. I'm so grateful for these guys. They really make my life a whole heck of a lot easier. And I know that every time something goes wrong, whether it's with the HVAC system, it's with the plumbing, electrical, you name it, I'm calling Weston and the guys at Polar Bear Services first. So if you want to make sure that air conditioning and your furnace and everything like that is ready for this winter, before things cool off, it's going to be cool this summer, I might add, make sure you call our friends at Polar Bear Services. All throughout Alabama, they're the independent Trane dealer. Nothing can stop Trane. And remember, if you have a problem with your electrical, plumbing, heat, or air, just pick up the phone and call the Bear. It's 205-497-BEAR. That's 497-BEAR.
Now, we don't need to go too deep into these actual matchups or anything, but 6:30 p.m. NBC tomorrow, number 19 Illinois 4-0, number 9 Penn State 3-0. 19.5, Greg. I can't get over how big this line is in favor of Penn State. I get it. It's at home. I understand that. I don't feel like Penn State has looked exceptional this year. Do they have really good football players? Yes. Do they have a great football team? I don't know. I don't think so. I think they have some talent, but I think Illinois has got a good team. And physicality is not something that's going to be a problem. Penn State's not pushing them around. You have go-to receivers and guys like Zachary Franklin that you can lean on, depend on. I just think this is way too much. Your thoughts on just that line specifically for this game?
Yeah, I understand the thought process, and I think that's what Vegas wants you to think, because your initial reaction is like, oh my goodness, you're going to lay nearly 3 touchdowns with a team that has yet to really be tested against a team that has been tested, that's been pretty good. I'd lay them in this situation. When the line doesn't make sense, there's a reason why, and I think Illinois, you look at last year, Illinois, I believe Altmaier threw 4 picks in this game last year. This thing got sideways in a hurry. I don't think Illinois is that good. I really don't. I think they have some weapons. I like Zachary Franklin. I think their back is okay because he's 250 pounds, but you're not going to run through. I don't think you're going to run through Penn State's defense like that. And this is really the first opportunity to see just how much better Penn State's offense really is. And I think they are. I think they are significantly improved. So I'd lean Penn State in this game. But, yeah, the line's crazy for sure. It certainly feels that way, which is all the more reason why I want to take Penn State in the game.
Okay. I'll raise you this. With Luke Altmaier's poor performance last year, leads the Big Ten with 10 touchdown passes. He's the only player in college football with 10 or more touchdown passes and no interceptions this year. But this thing goes both ways. I mean, it's wild. That +7 turnover differential for Illinois, tied for the second best in FBS, forced 10 turnovers this year, tied for the lead in the Big Ten with Maryland. So Penn State owns the series, 21-6 all time. They've won 4 of the last 5. Remember, that lone loss was the 9 overtime game in 2021 that got the rule changed. And then we go to Penn State, 2-10 in their last 12 against AP-ranked opponents. 1-8 in their last 9 against AP-ranked Big Ten opponents. So I don't know. I mean, there's a history would tell you that you could go either direction with this, but I don't know. I'm a fan of what Illinois is doing right now. I like their offense. Like you said, I like their physicality. And I think they can be a little bit of a problem for Penn State in that area. And if they can get to Drew Aller, they can potentially force more turnovers, which I think would allow them for this game to go the direction that they want to. And I think there's too many points, no matter what. All right, the other one that I had was, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday, Greg, it's just BYU and Baylor. BYU at Baylor, 11 a.m., FS1, BYU 4-0, Baylor 2-2. Baylor 3-point favorite in this game. I know they're at home. I know it's probably a little bit of desperation time.
Yes.
But is this the one that you look at, like you just said before, it's weird for a reason, or do you just look at it and say it's wrong?
No, it's weird. I really like BYU. Like, their D-line is no joke. I mean, they are grown men. So I don't really understand why this line is where it's at. But if I'm not mistaken, Baylor or BYU is ranked what, like 24th, right? Like thereabouts.
BYU is 22nd right now.
22nd. I'm sorry. So when you look at ranked teams that are underdogs on the road at unranked teams, the cover rate for the unranked team is like 70+%. So this is one that's like very dangerous. So you got to be very strong in your convictions if you feel good about BYU, because the trends would tell you lay 'em and laugh with Baylor. But man, there's not a whole lot that I like about Baylor right now. I think they're a little better offensively for sure. I think they have some craftiness, but they haven't seen a D-line like they're going to see this weekend, man. BYU is no joke up front defensively.
No, I'm with you. I'm on BYU in this game. I think the wrong team favored. And like I said before, I'm not sure I like Illinois for the outright win, but I definitely think that they cover, and that one gets done. Is there something wrong with Boise being a 6.5-point favorite at home against 4-0 Washington State? 9 o'clock FS1 tomorrow night. Washington 4-0 beat Boise 2-1. Is that about where it should be? I'm not saying that I'm all in on Washington State just yet. And obviously Ashton Jeanty can pound the football. Boise's always great at home. But is that too much as far as being the home favorite against Washington State, who's undefeated this year?
I would not lay the points there. I would take Washington State. I think Washington State's quarterback's a handful. John Mateer, he's got some legs. They've been tested. They obviously beat Washington a couple weeks ago in the Apple Cup. Washington's defense, I don't know if I'd go as far as to say they're elite, but I think they're pretty good. So I think when you look at Washington State, and yes, I know Boise's played Oregon and all this stuff. I kind of think this is a high-scoring game. Hey, name your score. I think race to 35 type of game. And I lean towards Washington State being able to kind of keep things going a little better than I do Boise. Both teams are going to be able to score.
Arizona's at Utah. Utah, number 10 team in the nation, 4-0. Arizona had the week off. They're 2-1. 9:15 on ESPN. So this will be your formerly Pac-12 after dark game. Utah gets this game at home, but they're an 8-point favorite at home, and obviously, quarterback situation continues to just, I guess, be a question mark forever. Is 8 points enough for you to take Arizona on the road in this game?
No, because right now, based on what I've seen from Arizona, and I've only watched one of their games, it's really just Tet McMillan and Noah Fafita. That's kind of it. Their defense isn't the same. The weapons around McMillan are not the same, and the offensive line hasn't been as consistent. So I just think they're a little too one-dimensional, and you kind of know, unless they get Tet McMillan going, that's kind of all they got right now. So I don't think that's a good situation to be in against a defense that's really well coached that can neutralize your best weapon.
Well, you can run the football and keep it away from them. And Noah Fafita has, you mentioned, inconsistent. That'd be the word that I would describe him this year also, especially compared to last year. Because that's why he got in the game last year, is because you had an interception machine at quarterback, and he came in, took care of the football, and he hasn't always been that guy this year. Any concern for number 8 Oregon going to UCLA? 10 p.m. on Fox tomorrow, by the way.
No concern. UCLA is terrible.
Okay. Just confirming that we were there on that one and making sure.
Unless you feel otherwise, because I'd love to be talked into taking the other side. I'd love a home dog, but come on.
No, I watching that offense against LSU last week. I know what that offense is. Like, we know what Eric Bieniemy does, and like, you got to have a real trigger man to run that offense, and they don't have that right now.
And so, Garbers ain't that.
Yeah, it's just that's not kind of not what it is. All right, we'll continue rolling on Max Ball here on a Friday. Some other SEC games that we need to get to. Texas making their SEC debut. What will it look like for both sides of that game? We'll discuss it. But before we do that, GMAC, tell our listeners about Bromberg's.
Well, Bromberg's is that amazing place where you can go and you just feel like you're shopping amongst family. It's that luxury shopping experience that you're only going to find at Mountain Brook Village in the Summit. Right now, if you go in, they have an Annie Glass giftware event. Tomorrow is the last day. Annie Glass has awesome handcrafted glassware, and Andy Morehauser, the artist behind Annie Glass, is at the Mountain Brook store personally engraving pieces. So visit brombergs.com/events to learn more. They have the master jewelry, watches, jewelry, giftware, best in customer service. It's the only place I'd shop because that luxury shopping experience at Brombergs is second to none for nearly 200 years. 2 locations, Mountain Brook Village and the Summit, or you can shop online at brombergs.com.
All right, a number for Alabama in this game that could be beneficial. I'll give you that one next, and then we'll go to some other SEC matchups. Max Ball right after this, again on McElroy and Kubelik in the morning. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Kubelik in the morning. Appreciate you guys tuning in. If you want to be a part of the show, 800-239-9569, 800-239-WJOX. I was flipping through the college football scoreboard at ESPN to try to look at games. They already have your get up hit from this morning in your hotel room on ESPN.com, GMAC. So great job there.
Oh, wow. So Ken confirmed that I was actually working on it. I wasn't just hanging out. Didn't just go down to get coffee during the Stanford Steve
McElroy on
segment,
Carson Beck, quote, he's just so hard not to love. That's the first thing that comes to my mind.
Quote. Wow. That's the type of quote you want.
Tie disrespecter. Wow.
It'd be your own tie people. Disrespect. In said segment, there's also a glowing review of Jalen Milroe. So I actually really like.
Not headline worthy, right, obviously.
Just bury the lead.
That sounds like clickbait. No.
No fluff. I'm actually a huge fan of what I've seen from both quarterbacks this year.
When people ask me to break down certain individuals' games, I usually talk about how much I cannot not love them. That's where I usually go.
Yes.
But glad to see you're on board with that also.
Fire.
All right, Arkansas, Texas A&M, 2:30 ESPN. Both teams 3-1. That just kind of feels weird to say because I don't feel like they've both played a ton of great football this year, but they're finding ways to win, so you can't be mad at that. The A&M, and I know you probably didn't watch a lot of it, Greg, because Bowling Green, by the way, Bowling Green has an edge defender and a tight end that are going to be highly sought after next year. Don't know their names, can't even remember their numbers, but I'm just telling you right now. They got a big, long, tall edge guy that had a couple wins, and they got a tight end that's pretty physical, good length, good speed, athletic, that both those guys are going to be playing somewhere different, if I would imagine, next season. Nonetheless, 2:30 ESPN, obviously Jerry World. That A&M film was so strange last week because I'm watching it and I'm thinking, okay, there's a breakdown here or there, but this is really not that bad. And you're watching the defense, and the D-line's getting wins, but you forget that a couple times the secondary has these breakdowns. And, Greg, I'm watching this film, and all of a sudden I'm looking up, and it's 2:37 left in the fourth, and it's 24-17. Bowling Green's driving, like, on their side of the 50 trying to go score. And I'm thinking, how did we get here? Because the film didn't look miserable. So I still kind of don't know what to make of A&M. And I know that Elko said earlier in the year that the quarterback situation will be a game-time decision every week. I don't know how it's not Marcel Reed. He gives you too many other things that you can design for him. A little inconsistent throwing the football, but I think he opens up more in your traditional running game by what he's capable of doing outside the pocket and with quarterback runs that you got to go with him and you got to kind of figure it out. Don't think he's getting a ton of help from the wide receivers. I think they could be doing a little bit more for him after the catch, but still, the defensive line is going to keep you in most games. They're going to have their hands full with an athletic quarterback this week. I think I'm leaning Arkansas in this game, but I think this is a Texas A&M -5.5. I don't really know how or why. I think this is like a literal coin flip game, especially on a neutral site. Which side do you like in this one?
Yeah, I kind of like Arkansas. Now, part of it is, all right, quarterback play. We'll start there. I think Taylon Green's a big hitter. I look at quarterback run and how quarterback run impacted the Notre Dame game and how that was ultimately what was the biggest difference is the quarterback run game. I think he had 70 yards or so, Riley Leonard did, against that A&M defense. And I know that there were a few examples in that A&M game against Notre Dame where they kind of played their way out of gaps and kind of gave up a couple freebies. But I just think this Arkansas team has a lot of juice, and I'm just a believer in Taylon Green. On the other side, too, I think that their defensive line, I know that they're not going to be an elite group, but I think they can be disruptive enough to neutralize an A&M offensive line that I think has vastly improved. So I think their movement stuff can be problematic, too. So I think it's a tough one, but I would lean just ever so slightly towards Arkansas.
I'm kind of there too. Like in A&M's the favorite in this game, which is just a little bit odd. Taylor Green, 957 through the air, 325 on the ground through 4 games, one of 2 FBS quarterbacks with 900 passing yards, 300 rushing yards. You have said the other's name on the show today. Would you like to take a guess who it is?
300 passing yards, what now?
900 passing yards, 300 rushing yards. There's 2 quarterbacks that have done it this year. It is a rando, but you said his name on the show today.
Ooh. Gosh.
He plays in a conference that does not have a lot of teams.
Oh, Mateer.
John Mateer, Washington State.
That's right.
That's the other. Yep, that is him. So Jaquin Jackson. Yeah, Jaquin Jackson still leading the SEC. Not in leading the SEC in rushing, 472 yards, 4th in FBS, 8 rushing touchdowns, tied with Madre Hill in 1995 for the most through 4 games as an Arkansas player. Auburn fans, if you were paying attention then, Madre Hill stings because game in Little Rock that he absolutely went bananas on Auburn defense. I think that was 1995, if I'm not mistaken. Nonetheless, you mentioned what Arkansas has defensively. I thought 40-4 played great football last week. They're 2 edge defenders. And that's kind of what you have to have against a guy like Marcel Reed, right? I mean, you got to make sure that he's not hurting you out on the edges, that he's not breaking you down, leaving the pocket. I think those 2 are going to be critical defending this A&M offense. I will say this. I think the A&M offensive line's kind of figuring it out a little bit. Chase Basantis looked really good at left guard last week. They're beginning to sort of roll together and start figuring some things out. But can they just line up and run the football at this Arkansas defense, Greg, and have success? I'm not sure that I see that necessarily happening. I think Arkansas's D-line's a little better than that, than just to get gashed. So I'm with you. I'm leading Arkansas here.
Yeah, I think it's a tough one. It's not one that I would be, running to the Vegas window to play. I do, however, feel like it's a pretty solid, just all things considered, a pretty solid matchup for Arkansas. Like, it's one that I think they can actually win. I think if it's really going to come down to how much quarterback run is the opposing defense able to give up, because it's really, I look at it, man, like the more I watch these defenses, like I think quarterback run is your friend in this game. So that's why I think Marcel Reed's the answer. And I would just lean Taylor Green over Marcel Reed because I just think he's a better player.
Yeah. All right, Damian, John, Arkansas A&M. Which direction you going? A&M 5.5-point favorite at AT&T Stadium.
I'm going Arkansas. I just think that, the one thing that stops Arkansas is like they more than less beat themselves before the other team beats them, like the Oklahoma State game. They kept giving Oklahoma State opportunities. They could be sitting right here at this point undefeated, but I just think that they got a little juice. There's something about this Arkansas unit. Like when they're clicking, they look pretty doggone good.
Say, Bear?
The question is, will they continue to have turnovers? They had turnovers in the Auburn game. Obviously, the turnovers killed them in the Oklahoma State game. They were able to overcome. Well, they weren't able to overcome the turnovers because Auburn had more. But I think A&M is a team that you can't keep giving the ball to, like you could in Auburn, and Oklahoma State was able to take advantage of that. If Arkansas can limit the turnovers, they got this easily.
Here's one to watch. Third downs. Texas A&M, 20th ranked defense on third down, allowing opponents to convert 29% on the season. We know what Taylor Green individually did on third down last week. So can't allow him to do that. And that one number that I was going to give Alabama fans that could benefit you this weekend against Georgia, Alabama, the number 1 third down defense in college football. 8 conversions on 49 attempts. That's 16% on the season. Only 2 teams in college football allowing under 20% of their third downs to be converted. That is Alabama and anyone?
Kentucky.
I'll say Washington.
Tennessee.
Ooh.
Yeah.
By the way, UNLV right there, allowing opponents to convert just 20% of their third downs on the season.
Oh, wow.
So it's not just Sluka that was getting it done for UNLV. There are other ways that they have been successful this year. All right, we'll get to a break. We're going to continue Max Ball, continue breaking down some of these games coming up this weekend right after this on McElroy and Kubelik in the morning. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Kubelik in the morning. Appreciate you guys listening. JocksFM.com. App is in your app store. Tell your home smart speaker, enable the Jock skill. Friday, September 27th. Jocks 94.5. Also appreciate you guys down on Sports Radio 740 listening in Montgomery and Talk Radio 103.9, 730 AM, the ump there in North Alabama. Before we get to a couple of other games, I'm going to tell you guys about where your game day should be, Game Day Men's Health. They want to help you feel better. Weight loss, they have multiple plans that can help you there. But maybe you're just lacking energy, getting poor sleep, feeling on edge. Could be the effects of low testosterone. So here's what Game Day Men's Health wants to do for you. You go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com right now, set up a free consultation, no charge. You're also going to get a free PSA test and a free testosterone test. With that, they're going to get your baseline of where you are and what the problem could be, and then they're going to begin to give you options where they can help it. Not going to force anything on you. Locker room environment, no stress environment. They're just going to let you know what options are available, and they want to help you with those. Minimal upfront cost for the programs that they offer. And if you choose one, save 10% on any service by mentioning Cube right now at Game Day Men's Health. Helped me with some of my health issues. They can help you as well at GameDayMen'sHealth.com, GameDayMen'sHealth.com. Mississippi State at Texas, GMAC. I'll be in the booth with Tom Hart for this one. Alyssa Lane going to be on the sideline. 3:15 SEC Network. This Mississippi State defense struggle bus, man. Like there's really no other way to describe it, no other way to talk about it. I do think that the effort has been better than you would think when you see the numbers and then you watch the tape. It's not that guys don't care or guys don't want to do it. Now, there are guys running themselves out of plays, defensive linemen getting their shoulders turned, which I actually think is one of their biggest issues right now. But they're not a big, bulky defense, and I think that's also one of the issues. And this is a Texas offense that can go right at you. They begin to show that a little bit more the last couple of weeks. Any hope for Mississippi State in this one, specifically starting a freshman quarterback?
Yeah, I think that Mississippi State's in an impossible situation. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's an impossible situation. I think, if anything, you get a good look about what you might have in the future. If you're Mississippi State, that's a benefit. I just think it's a tough matchup. But then again, I think Texas is kind of a tough matchup for everybody, so I wouldn't feel too bad about it because you certainly won't be the only one this week that will make, or the only one this year that will have their challenges with the Longhorns. So hate that the circumstances are what they are for Mississippi State. I just wish they were at 100% with Blake Shapen. I hate that his season's over because of the shoulder injury. That's a bummer as well. But man, it's hard to find, and you doing the game, it's hard to find a lot of pathways to making this game competitive outside of Texas just having a bunch of turnovers.
Absolutely. And the Texas quarterback situation, still some uncertainties there. Michael Van Buren most likely going to get the start for Mississippi State. Could see Chris Parsons in a quarterback as well. Would not be surprised to see both. He was 7 of 13, 100 yards off the bench last week. Number 57 overall recruit in ESPN 300. 6th-ranked quarterback in the class of 2024. He has talent. I mean, he can move. He's got a big, strong arm. We visited with a couple of the receivers on this team. They raved just about his personality, his leadership, and tough for a freshman to come in and kind of win over your receiving corps, Greg, especially when you're not the starting quarterback. But I thought that said a lot about this young man, that receivers already raving about his behavior and the kind of individual he is and how he handles himself because, I mean, a freshman quarterback doesn't usually come in and step in front of a bunch of other guys like that. But it feels like Michael Van Buren's been able to do that to a certain extent in a good way.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's beneficial. I mean, they don't have much of a choice now, too. I mean, hey, this is our guy. Let's lift him up, boys. Like, us 10, we got to pick him up. So it's certainly possible that you're going to be able to find some advantages with a young quarterback because he kind of he doesn't know what he doesn't know yet. I think that ignorance is bliss a little bit sometimes in a setting like this as well. But, man, Blake Shapen's played in that environment before against the Longhorns, so it'd been really beneficial to have him, but it is what it is. So let's see how it goes. I mean, I think he's got talent, but, man, it's tough circumstances.
Would you take the points here, 38.5?
No.
John?
I think I take the over. I don't know if I take the points.
Okay. Total sitting at 62.5. Texas defense playing pretty good ball too. Damian?
Nah, I think Texas is gonna handle that one.
Okay. We dive into Auburn, Oklahoma. How does Auburn manufacture some offense in this game against an exceptional front seven? Give you our definitive picks on that game, Alabama, Georgia, and more. All next right here on Jocks 94.5, McElroy and Kubelik in the morning. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Kubelik in the morning, 9 a.m. Friday, September 27th, Jocks 94.5. Tweet into the show, at Mac and Cube. If you have questions, games you want us to discuss, things you want us to get into, we will try to hit all those there. Also, if you want to hit us up on the Buyers Right Hotline, 800-239-9569, 800-239-WJOX. Have not heard from Caleb again today. Figure he might not want to know the line of the Auburn Oklahoma game and who might be according to, but we have not heard just yet. So we'll wait and see if we can get to that at some point across the course of the show today. Tell our listeners about B-Drive, though, Greg, and how they can help them around their home.
Well, they've been serving Alabama and customers here across this community for more than 60 years. B-Drive is the largest waterproofing company in the country. They're the only company with the solution that stops all 5 ways water can enter your foundation. Look, we've had some wet weather this week. Go down into your basement or crawl space. Just make sure that there's no mold or mildew. Make sure the walls aren't damp. Make sure there's no water that's seeping its way into your basement or crawl space. That can be damaging not just to your home, but also to your health as well. So go and check them out. by going to BeDryAlabama.com. Know that you're going to get a life of the structure warranty. You're going to get the job done right, and you're going to also get 12 months interest-free and no payments. That's right, payments for 12 months. So you get to pay a dime. Go check them out at 942-1976. That's 942-1976, or visit BeDryAlabama.com.
All right, so when you look at the Auburn offense, we know kind of what it is. We know the issues. We know things that have not been going well. I mean, it's a chore enough for us, Greg, to go repair shop here and try to figure out just how we start moving the ball in general. How do we alter things to move the football against this specific front seven that Brent Venables and company are going to throw at us?
You know, I think you have to live on some perimeter runs. That's going to be really big. Got to get some perimeter runs going, because I don't know how you feel. Do you feel good about Auburn being able to just run it up the gut?
I'm going to go ahead and tell you that no, that's not going to happen, except for the 2 or 3 where you may hit Oklahoma on a run stunt and the refill player doesn't get back in time. And so maybe you catch a couple of them there, but you're not making a living on that. No.
No way, right? I mean,
Nope.
It's going to almost have to be a scenario where you got to get some things outside the tackle. You got to do some pin and pull stuff. And you got to use their athleticism against them. They have great athleticism. This is a very athletic defense. I think misdirection is your friend. I think you almost 100% have to be using misdirection almost all the time. And that's kind of another place where I live. I just think this is a very, very difficult spot for Oklahoma. I mean, very difficult. Partly because they left it all on the field last week. I also think that Oklahoma is without some really good playmakers offensively. So it's almost all the pressure is on their defense, all of it. And I think you can force them to make a mistake or two by being super aggressive and using some misdirection and some challenges down the field. Like, I don't know right now about Oklahoma's corners. I think the rest of their defense is excellent, but the one spot I just don't know about are the corners. So I would challenge those guys. I would go after them, and I think you might be able to find some success in 50-50 ball situations.
That's a good point about the corners, because remember, Houston started finding some things late against this defense, and not all of it down the field, but some of it in the intermediate game, being able to throw the football. And then I think your question then becomes, Greg, okay, is it worth the risk of plain and simple putting the football out there and potentially ending up in the other team's hands? Oklahoma takes the ball away. At the end of the day, it's one of the things you can say about almost every Venables defense, and you can say specifically about this Oklahoma defense. They take the ball away. And how conservative can you be if you're Hugh Freeze? Like, I get it. We all sit here and say, like, let's run the football, or we're ground and pound. We got to lean on Jarquez Hunter, whatever that is. But how many 3-and-outs do you want to go before you start saying, okay, we got to try and orchestrate something here. We got to draw something up that's going to give us a little bit of a different result. Because that sort of line that you're going to have to walk between, I mean, hell, we could say almost any pass is high risk right now, right, with this offense? I think it's fair to say. So
I'd say it's definitely fair.
How high risk do you go operate? And, you know, how simple can you allow things to be? I mean, does this come down to quarterback runs on broken plays or leaving the pocket, essentially? Like, who can make the other team pay the most on scramble drill? Is that where we're at? That's
kind of where we're at, buddy. I mean,
hell yeah.
I don't know what to tell you.
That's my kind of game.
I think this, like, if this final score is 6-3, would it surprise you?
No, if it was 2-3, it wouldn't surprise me. If it was 6-8, it wouldn't surprise. I mean, I don't know what we're gonna get.
Scramble drill, broken plays for sure. I think it's really, really big, because you look at Hawkins' skill set is a little like the guy that we saw from New Mexico a couple weeks ago. Like, he's got some scattiness. He's a little bit quick. He's got some Kyler Murray in him with how quick he is, and will leave the pocket and do some things that maybe are a little unorthodox, but he's a very capable guy, and a guy that I would not want to allow him to get outside the pocket, because guess what? The second you allow him to get outside the pocket, there might be some spots for him to find receivers that become uncovered because of him running around. So that would be something that would be of the utmost importance to me if I were looking at at this game as a whole, the biggest thing that scares me is scramble drill if I'm DJ Durkin in this defense. Like, that scares me to death because I've already shown that I can't do a very good job of it. And if I get beat against New Mexico, imagine what's going to happen against a team like Oklahoma.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, Damian, John, you guys see a different way offensively for either one of those teams in which they're able to generate some kind of consistent success?
No.
Okay, so there we go.
That's the recipe.
Yeah.
Scramble drill for the win.
Sounds like a good recipe.
Here we go.
Just find a way. Literally.
Oklahoma tied for the lead nationally with 12 takeaways this year. San Jose State also has 12. Cal sitting right there at number 3 with 11. I feel like I have a decent idea how they got there. But nonetheless, we'll see if Auburn can negate a couple of turnovers and find a way to consistently move the football against this Oklahoma
really
defense.
think there's no way Hugh knows the way that the fastest way to lose this game is turning it over, obviously. So do you think he does a little like Josh Heupel does and just becoming a little more conservative offensively? Hey, punting it in this situation's fine. Obviously, I don't think Hugh feels as strongly about his defense as Josh Heupel does about his. But do you think keep away style of attack is kind of the way to play this one, or what?
Couple things on that. Number one, I still think that a large portion of what Heupel was doing was more strategic as to wanting to be that type of a team than it was fear. I think what he did offensively was almost more out of confidence than being scared, or just essentially saying, let's hold on for dear life. I don't think that was as much of what Josh was doing as what Freeze would probably be doing in this scenario. Number two, I think you got to see how your defense is operating first, Greg. If somehow Oklahoma and Seth Luttrell come out and they have found something, this is what I've said, and this is what I would be worried about if I was an Auburn fan. Go watch all the plays that Oklahoma ran on offense, specifically with Michael Hawkins running the show last week, inside the 10-yard line. Mainly, actually inside the 5, because that's where they started doing it. And if all of a sudden you take that creativity, that movement, those type of options on every play where you have to defend multiple things that are happening at one time, and they start doing that successfully inside the 20s, you can't be that offense then, Greg, because that's going to be tough to defend. And that's the kind of stuff that we saw Arkansas have a little success with last week. Bobby Petrino, he changed up the read a little bit. They had the linebackers jumping gaps back and forth. They lost contain a couple of times. I mean, Auburn got to the quarterback. Just couldn't get him to the ground. So if they find a way to start reinventing themselves with more read plays that has a splitter coming across and a jet motion coming across, then they're both going the same way, and the quarterback's got a read, then he rolls to the right, and he's got a little pop pass he can hit. Then all of a sudden, you have to think to yourself at that point, in my opinion, you can't live like that offensively, because they're probably going to get a couple scores if they're doing that and doing it successfully. So I got to see kind of what Seth Luttrell breaks out early and not necessarily inside the red zone. And is my defense going to be up to the task if it's different than what we're anticipating?
What do you feel about the identity for Auburn's defense in this game? Ramp up pressure or sit back and kind of let the game come to you?
Go get him.
Go get him.
I don't think it's even close. DJ Durkin did a great job with two things last week. One, he had success with pressures. Two, he did not lean on his initial plan with pressures throughout the course of the game. So we've talked about this. He came out early, edge pressure. Thought he was going to find the weakness there, be able to get to the quarterback. I bet if I went back and really looked at it again, I would be willing to bet that it was probably to the Taylen Green's right. And I can see a couple early that were, but I don't know if they all were. I would imagine he thought he really struggles with pressure from the open side. Or maybe even it was his backside, whatever it is. But when he sees it to that side, I'm just thinking out loud here, we're going to attack that because we know mentally he breaks down when he sees that. Well, it wasn't working because of how Petrino altered some of the protection stuff. Well, then I think the counter to that was DJ saying, okay, we're not going to win out there. Here's how we're going to win inside, and here's how we can take advantage of what they're trying to do. This is where the iPads have been massive, by the way, because I just don't think people see this fast enough to make these adjustments previously. But now they can. Now they can go over there and look at everything. This is what Charlie Weiss Jr. told us last week, Greg. This was pretty cool. Well, actually, Lane told this about Charlie. He's like, Charlie doesn't watch a defensive snap of live action. He's literally on the iPad watching our previous series back the entire way, looking at things that he's going to alter and plan. But the difference there is you were always working on that. Now you're actually watching it back in real time of this is what they lined up in. This is what they did. This was the coverage. This is how we can attack it if they keep doing that. And then this is where we'll go if they try to do that off of it. You're seeing it all. So I say go after him because DJ can draw things up to get home. We've seen that. With this defense, he can do it. It's possible. So go after him. You have to think a young kid will make mistakes. He did get a little trigger happy at times last week. There's no reason to sit back against a group of 2 and 3 wide receivers. Nothing against them, but their starters are all out. So it's not making fun of them. It's just saying basically all of the ones at wide receiver are out for this game for Oklahoma. I'll take my chances there, and we've talked about it. What did Auburn win against Arkansas with? And maybe Coach Dilfer's right. There's only one guy. Maybe Armstrong's the only one that can actually win one-on-ones. Okay, that's fine. I don't think Oklahoma's 2s and 3s should be able to win one-on-ones. So we'll take our chances with that. Auburn was great in man coverage last week when they were asked to do it. So I go out there and try to man him up again, and I go after him and at least get him thinking, get him looking, get him nervous, get him scared, get some hits on him, and try to play Oklahoma's game, which is take the ball away, and hopefully that's our path to being able to find a win at home.
Well, the other thing about Oklahoma that I think is really interesting, and I know the receivers are a question mark for sure, but when you have a neutral when you have a neutralizer at quarterback with the runaround stuff, and you're not going to get man coverage. Like, there's no way Auburn's playing man coverage this week against a mobile guy like this. There's just no way. So you're going to get a lot of zone coverage. So you don't need, like, elite wide receiver weapons because you don't have to create separation against guys that are in one-on-one. You just have to find holes in the zone. So does Hawkins' mobility concern you? If you're DJ Durkin, does his mobility concern you to the point in which you still want to play some man coverage against these backups? Let's just call them what they are, backups at receiver?
I don't. I would think, and I was actually going to ask you this question when you started going there, would the pressure not offset that? If you can be successful covering up but if you can be successful covering up the receivers, and that's not your concern, your pressure has to take care of the quarterback run. And that's maybe some simulated stuff where you drop to a spy situation, or you kind of mush rush on the outside to make sure you keep contained, but you're bringing your real pressure up the middle. But you can design that to make sure he doesn't beat you with his legs. And trust me, we've seen it how many million times where a quarterback still does, even though you rush him that certain way. I just would want to make him think, and I would want his eyes to be completely scatterbrained. I want him all over the place. And I want him thinking more. I want him thinking he's seeing things. I want him in a hurry. All of those things. And then, let's be real. This is Oklahoma's first SEC game on the road. I think the Auburn fans are going to show up. Even though things have not gone according to plan this year, I think they want Oklahoma to feel what that stadium can be like. I think it's going to be a really good crowd. I think it's going to be loud. I think it's going to be intimidating. And if Auburn gets a couple of sacks and a turnover and a few TFLs early in this game, that crowd will be on tilt. And then I really go after him. So I want it to all play into that. You don't think the
Auburn crowd's a little demoralized right now?
Absolutely. We are, Greg. 100%. But I think they're going to show up for this game is what I'm telling you.
They've been on tilt a couple times this year, and they're 2-2 at home.
They've been on tilt the other way, as in thinking about leaving the stadium because of the offense. That's what tilt they've been tilting the stairs leaving because the offense has been so bad. They're going to show up for this game. I believe there are a ton of Auburn fans that had this game circled at the beginning of the year. Oklahoma coming to Auburn, first time as a member of the SEC. I think this is kind of a prove-it game for the Auburn crowd. And for all y'all out there that think I hate Auburn on the message boards, what in the hell has this been for the last 48 seconds? I feel like the booster of morale, or whatever the hell one of those stupid names is that coaches get these days. Like, what am I even doing here? Yes, the Auburn fans are going to show up. It's going to be a great environment. because they know right now in this game particularly that they're going to have a say of who wins. Like, they can affect this game greatly. This might be the most impact that an Auburn crowd can have on a game this year because they're not coming back for a month, first and foremost. So what's the record going to be after all those games we've seen lined up? Georgia, Missouri, Kentucky. This might be the most impact that the Auburn crowd can have on a football game this calendar year. So, yes, I think they're going to show up. I think it's going to be a good crowd. And if they get a couple of those things we talked about early on, then I think it goes full-blown tilt and Jordan-Hare Stadium impacts the game.
Let's hope. Hope.
Rah.
Let me tell you this. When you're a team that's searching, it's almost harder sometimes to be at home. Because guess what? Peyton Thorne throws a pick in the first quarter. The Boo Birds are coming. And I'm not sure it's directed in the right place. So I'm going to be honest with you. I think the Jordan-Hare is a neutral advantage this week, and I would not normally say that. So I just hope the Auburn fans hear it and say, hey, look, support our guys no matter what. But I'm just telling you, the first sign of problems at quarterback, you're going to have a disengaged group and probably more negativity than you would want.
That's fair. That's totally fair and totally reasonable. And I do think that's sort of that's the other side of the seesaw that you're on here, is that if you do try some of those things we talked about offensively and they go bad early, then you probably lose the crowd.
Yep.
Seriously. Like, the crowd just like, F it. Not again. Not doing this again. Like, we've seen this too many times and I'm out. I'm not doing this. Like, I talked to a couple last week that after the first two picks, they literally went and sat at their tailgate or in their cars. They're like, I can't do it again. Not again. And that's the first thing that 60,000 of the 87 plus in there will say if you get an interception early is, nope, not again. And if they don't say it out loud, they're thinking it. So try to get some good momentum going early somehow, some way. Keep it conservative on offense early, attack on defense. And if you can get wins doing that, I think it leads to a lot of other positive things. And somehow, some way, I may have convinced myself Auburn's going to win this game just now.
I think they're going to win.
I didn't think that before this segment. So
I picked them 3 weeks ago. I picked them 3 days ago. I feel good about them this week. I do. Desperation, back against the wall, got to have a situation. You cannot start the season 2-3 with a 3-game road trip starting next week at Georgia, at Missouri, at Kentucky. You absolutely 100% have to win. If you lose this game, you're going 3-9 or 4-8. So this is like an absolute rip the Band-Aid off, break glass. It's time to go. And I think they'll play well. I really do. I trust Auburn's offense a lot more than I trust Oklahoma's, which is crazy. But I do. So I think they find a way to get it done.
Yeah. Damian, which direction are you going with this one? And by the way, Oklahoma's still 3-1, by the way. Like, it's interesting to hear what you say about where things could go for Auburn if they lose. Like, Oklahoma's still 3-1.
Mm-hmm.
So where are you going with this one?
I think Auburn wins. I think it's an ugly game. I think it'll be a little bit sloppy, but I just think the fact that they're at home, Jordan-Hare will be locked in. They'll be pumped, but I think it'll be close. But Auburn wins.
John,
I think Oklahoma squeezes it out.
I think Oklahoma gets a defensive touchdown and wins.
I think I trust Oklahoma's defense more than Auburn's, and I think they find a way.
Did you just flip again?
No, because I did the show for AL.com earlier this week. I picked Oklahoma to win. I'm not going to pick both. That's stupid. I said in this segment, I think I just
talked myself into picking Auburn in the last 3 minutes. And then he just said, I think Oklahoma
I'm not going to pick
gets a defensive touchdown to win the game.
I'm not going to pick Oklahoma on Tuesday and come back here on Friday and have it publicly out there that I picked both teams to win. Like, that's dumb.
He's not Damian, right? Yeah.
But I do feel like I have convinced myself in the last 5 minutes of radio that Auburn can win this game. So
they can.
And I think we just laid out the blueprint there. We just gave you the GPS coordinates. So congrats and good luck. We'll be back with more right after this. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Kubelik in the morning. 800-239-9569 if you want to get in on the Buyers Right hotline. That is how you can let us know what you're thinking about this weekend and what you want to know. Still waiting to hear from Caleb. Hadn't gotten him back today. We were hoping that was going to be a recurring, and I guess that's just not going to happen. So text into the show, 205-834-9450. Damian, text line heated up on the Auburn-Georgia conversation or the Auburn-Oklahoma conversation.
Yeah, and believe it or not, we actually got a text message from Caleb, but it ain't.
Let's go.
It's not Caleb from Wilsonville. My apologies. It's Caleb from Odenville. So the understudy.
Greg Odenville.
Sounds. I thought
old
Greg
enough.
would say something like
It's
that.
old enough.
I thought Greg would say something like that.
Odenville has better knees.
That wasn't McElroy. That wasn't McElroy joke for sure.
He says Auburn should move to Sam Jackson at quarterback. He's a better option than Peyton and Hank. At least he can be elusive.
Oh my god.
He could definitely be elusive.
Can we stop? What have we seen from Sam Jackson that makes us feel like he's a good option at quarterback?
Die Hard 3, Avengers.
Nothing this year.
The guy couldn't start at quarterback at Cal, but you want him to start at quarterback at Auburn.
He completed
How many
52%
quarterback
of
reps
his
has he
passes,
taken?
5 touchdowns, 2 interceptions last year at Cal.
That was good.
TCU never like a full-time quarterback, so I don't, he's 5'11", 185. I mean, I just don't. I understand like adding. You know what would be great if you want to go that route? Just add a small package with some stuff in there for him.
Yeah.
Just to become a little bit more difficult to defend.
Yeah.
So I'd be great with that, but full time, I don't know if that's your answer.
Yeah, we had somebody else text in and says, "I love Auburn, but no way they win this game." Ouch.
I think there's a way. I think we just laid out the way, and it's for your defense to be disruptive and a sack, a TFL, a turnover, get the ball out, force some mistakes, then get the crowd into it. I think there's a way. And also I think the way, like, what would you put right now, Greg, on Auburn winning this game, the minimum amount of turnovers that you would allow them to have and still have a chance to win? 1?
If I think they can't turn it over, like 0
At all. Okay.
At all.
No, I mean, that's kind of where my brain is, but I'm thinking, all right, I could give you maybe like 1 if you're having success and the ball gets a weird bounce or something. And like, I don't think you necessarily lose the crowd or lose momentum on that kind of a deal, but it can't be more than 1. Like, I think I'll allow 1 and say you'll still have a chance because Oklahoma might turn over 4 times. We don't know, but it can't be more than 1. If it's multiple, you're out.
Guys, I think we actually have a Caleb sighting.
Let's go. Where is he?
Caleb. He texted in, believe it or not. He texted in. He said that he believes he's going Alabama, Georgia. He says Alabama wins 52-0.
That's not him.
No, it's him.
So he's taking the points.
Yeah, after your
Wait, he thinks Alabama wins by what?
52-0.
According to who?
Is that why he was
Caleb.
calling to ask? Because he
Right,
thought, like, wait, I'm only getting 2 points at the sports book? Oh, no, that's wrong.
You have to go check.
It's a lock.
Oh my gosh.
Lock.
Okay.
Lock, stock, and barrel there.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
That's
All
where you
right.
go find if you feel that confident, that's where you go find an alternate line.
Exactly. Get some money, bro.
Where can I get Bama minus 49.5, and what kind of odds can I get there? Let's ride.
Oh boy. Somebody else takes in and says, let's review how many turnovers Auburn has had this season and the fact that they're playing Oklahoma's defense.
No, that's why we had the whole conversation
Right.
about it. Is 1, how many would you allow them? 2, how conservative a game plan that you go? We spent 10 minutes on that. Like, do you even put it in the air? If you do, like, how often?
Cole?
Where?
Cole?
Like, I mean,
I'm gonna preface
Yes?
this text message that this is a question for you.
well, if they recommend slide protection, just cancel
No,
the text
no.
line.
He says,
Just-
this is Paul from
Disconnect it.
Jasper. He says, do you think Auburn could go after the quarterback at UNLV, the last name Sluka?
Ooh, it's a good thought.
I don't know. Can On to Victory come up with $100,000
And actually,
or
deliver-
$3,000 a month?
probably
Either one.
could.
I mean, if they have to actually give it to him. I mean,
Right.
that's the problem.
That's the problem.
How's Hugh Freeze going to react when Sluka comes in and has 3 decent games and demands $250,000?
Probably not say two nice things on the way out.
Not the conversation everybody wants to have.
Not at all.
I think Auburn can find the money.
I think they'd be fine if that was it.
Saying they're breaded?
They got pockets.
Yeah, breaded.
I don't know why they don't just put who's the freshman, White? Why don't we just put him in? I mean, everybody must be better than these guys that are practicing every day. Why don't we just move Jarquez to quarterback?
I think that's what we should that could possibly work at this point. Just run quarterback sweep left and right.
Golly, what are we doing?
Okay. Yeah. I mean,
you're not in the Sluka camp?
No. On or off the field. Pat tweets into the show, the Auburn Bluebirds really come out of their quarterback plays bad and has a couple picks, and then if the Oklahoma quarterback, who is a true freshman, plays well, it will get even worse. I mean, I don't think you get more frustrated if he played well because he's a true freshman. I think it just to be that your opponent is playing well.
Yeah.
I mean, if things are not going well for your team, you usually just get mad that they're doing good things and you're not. I don't feel like that the classification academically has a lot to do with whether or not you get excited or not. But hey. Greg Skipper tweets in, why didn't Hugh get a quarterback that has the skill set to run his offense? Recruiting talent is important, but you still need guys that do what you do. You have to develop them. I feel like he kind of thought that he had done that to an extent.
I just don't understand what people think. Sometimes I just don't get it. Yep, you know what? I don't think Peyton Thorne's a system fit. What are we talking about? Like, I'm telling you, man. I'm losing hope. I'm losing hope here.
Oh, you sound like an Auburn fan.
Okay. Well, what I don't understand is, like, you can be a good quarterback. You really can. You can be a good quarterback and not be the best quarterback in the country. Like, this whole, like, Shohei Ohtani's the GOAT, Babe Ruth's trash. Like, it's okay. Like, it's like you can do that. This whole conversation that, like, I think Peyton Thorne's fine. The problem is people don't watch the games. They look at the box score and they say, "Oh, Peyton Thorne stinks," and that's it. Watch the games. Watch them. Tell me how much help Peyton Thorne's had. All those great receivers that you all love so much because they have 5 stars next to their name. Ask Cam Coleman how many drops this year. How many drops that resulted in interceptions?
Let me ask Damien. Let me ask you this, because there's a lot of people. I had this conversation with somebody last night, just kind of talking about this offense because they saw the clip that AL.com put out, and there are people that can't understand when I say this is not a quarterback problem.
Right.
There are people that can't comprehend that. Now, that is not me saying that quarterback has never been a problem.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a very different statement. So context is key, important here. The tight ends offer almost nothing in the run game.
Yep.
Like literally almost zero. 86 gives them something every now and then, but it's up and down. Okay, negative then. Left tackle's been a turnstile.
You don't even have to account for them in the run game.
Okay, left tackle's been a turnstile. Left guard has been a coin flip, whether or not going to be a turnstile. The running backs have put the ball on the ground. And yes, the quarterbacks have thrown interceptions. One thing that I feel like people have completely bypassed in this discussion, and since Damian played receiver in college, I'm going to get away from my opinion on it, Greg's opinion on it, John's opinion on it, and the fans' opinion on it. Someone who actually did it. Damian, there have been multiple balls that have hit receivers in the hands this year that have ended up as interceptions. Who is at fault there?
That's a receiver's fault.
You've specifically seen the ones for
stars.
Auburn, Damian. I'm referencing those. I'm not talking in generalities here.
No, he's got 5 stars.
You can go specifically when Peyton Thorne threw his interception second half. If Cam Coleman continues to run, he doesn't break stride. Like, it hits him dead in the hands. He jumps, and it's like, oh, come on, dog. And, I mean, they'll always tell you, any ball that you tip is pretty much it's an interception. If it hits your hands and it falls off, yeah, it's more than likely going to be trouble.
Is the mentality of a college wide receiver, if you get your hands on it, you should essentially catch it?
100% of the time. There's no such thing as a 50-50 ball.
So, I'm not really sure why, but I feel like that we've completely bypassed that.
Yep.
Like, we've talked about the offensive line. I'm not saying us here. I'm saying in general when this offense has been discussed. Offensive line, bad. Quarterback, the only reason they're bad. Running backs have drop ball at times. Tight ends not helping. But no one has wanted to point out that multiple passes have hit a receiver in the hands and ended up with the other team having possession.
That's 1,000%.
No one? No one?
Not including this show. Not including this show is what I'm saying. Very few
Because
people.
they have 5 stars. Because if you have 5 stars, you must never be the problem. Ever. The only person that can ever be the problem is the quarterback.
By the way,
So-
Shohei Ohtani was 3 for 5 last night with a double. Go-ahead RBI in the 7th. 10 hits in his last 11 at-bats. First player since 2001 with 400 total bases. You might not like it, Greg, but I'm giving him GOAT status. I don't care.
Whoa.
Well,
Better than Babe
like
Ruth.
him.
I said
better
it.
than
Well,
Barry?
Babe Ruth is trash,
Put
according
the
to
poll question out. Better baseball player.
according to
Babe Ruth,
8-year-olds.
Shohei Ohtani. I'm taking Shohei. I don't care. I don't care.
You need to ask Wimp Sanderson that next week.
How many bases Babe Ruth still in his career?
Without
I need to go find
bullying
that
him.
during the break. Yeah, I'm not allowed to ask him that anymore. So. All right, we'll be back with more Max Ball next on Mac and Cube in the morning. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Kublik in the morning, 9:38 a.m. Friday, September 27th. The boys will give you get the bag picks in our next segment. I got to head over to Texas meetings. Before I do that, I'm going to let you know about your CBD store. If you need a better night's sleep, if you need something to curb your appetite a little bit, your CBD store has products that can help with that. What about arthritis or anxiety for you or your pet? Your CBD store can help with both of those. your CBD store, first company to have USDA certified organic oil supplements that have the stamp seal on the products. The largest brick and mortar CBD retailer on planet Earth. They want to help you. Visit one of their 4 locations: Highway 280 by Bailey Brothers, 150 by the Cage in Cleveland, Trussell just off 459, and now downtown in 5 Points, your CBD store where good health hits home. Alabama, Georgia. As we get to our final thoughts on this game, I think it's going to come down to being able to win the line of scrimmage. That defensive line has been playing a little bit better than I think we thought at this point in the season for Alabama. Got the offensive line that you need. Also, a group we haven't talked about, Craig, is that tight end room for Alabama. I think with some of the edge defenders that you're going to see in this game, if Mykel Williams is back, Jalen Walker being able to line up off the edge, do some different things, that group could be huge for the Crimson Tide. Being able to sort of widen the surface a little bit or just get in the way, kind of reroute a rusher if you need to, getting some chips every now and then. I think that Robbie Utes, what he brings to the table, being able to do some of those things, obviously, C.J. Dupree, what he's been able to do if Danny Lewis gets a little bit of run. I think that group could be big in offsetting some of the strengths of this Georgia defense. And I don't know how good Georgia's going to be up the middle. I think Alabama's going to try it, and I think they're going to be able to add a blocker doing it with quarterback runs. And I think Alabama gets this win. I'm going to take Alabama to win. I do think it's a competitive game, close game. But at home, I think Kalen DeBoer's group finds a way to get it done.
It's going to be a great game. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to being in attendance. It's going to be amazing to do a doubleheader in one game. It's going to be really special to be able to go down there with the family and check it out. But I'm with you. I think the tight ends can play a pretty pivotal role. I really think the biggest advantage that Alabama might have is their offensive line against Georgia's defensive line. You know how crazy backwards that sounds? Seriously.
I get it.
It is a, and I know people, like I've seen people giving Georgia the edge, like when people do a tail of the tape, like whose offensive line would you rather have? People taking Georgia. I'm like, what, are we watching the same thing? Like, did you tell me, Cole? Like, I feel like that's a pretty significant gap in favor of Bama.
I'm with you.
So
specifically with some of the injuries for Georgia right now and how beat up they are.
Correct.
Now you're having to move guys around.
At full strength and also playing their best, sure. Yeah, you can talk me. Does Georgia have better prospects, perhaps? Like guys that'll be, do Georgia have guys that will have better NFL careers? I don't know. I mean, I don't know about all that. All I know is that I feel like Bama's offensive line, the most recent version of Bama's offensive line against Wisconsin, pretty dang sporty. So I feel good about what that group might be able to offer. The position that I would be paying the closest attention to are Georgia's receivers against Bama's secondary. That to me is the area of the game that has to be most neutralized, because I think Georgia's receivers are vastly underrated. And I think people look at it and say, well, Ladd McConkey's not there, Brock Bowers not there. All that's true. Those guys are gone. But I think Lovett's really good. I think Lovett's excellent. I think Arian Smith scares me to death as a defensive coordinator. Another guy that scares me to death is London Humphreys. Like, I think London Humphreys.
I haven't seen a ton of him, but yeah, he's capable.
He's there, and he shows up. And against Clemson, he made a couple big plays to break that thing open. Shallow cross.
Those are his only 2 catches on the year, Craig.
But he's had chances.
Oh, I know. I'm just saying it's weird that those are his only 2 catches, and they were big catches.
Huge, and it's in there now. Like, I think this receiver core is really underrated. So that would be the position that would concern me the most if I were Alabama, because I think these receivers can go. I think the passing attack should bounce back. And I think at this point, I feel good about my secondary, but I haven't been tested. And I look back, having watched the South Florida game in particular, there were guys open that Byron Brown could not hit. So I don't believe that Carson Beck is going to miss throws or opportunities like Byron Brown did for South Florida. So that's the position that I would be most concerned about and the most mindful of, because that group can really take over the game if you let them.
Absolutely. All right, there we go. John, Alabama, Georgia. Where are you going?
I felt ever since last Saturday, not this past, the one before, that Georgia was going to get this game. I'm starting to lean a little bit more towards Alabama, but just the way that Georgia came out and looked flat against Kentucky and how much of a complete team that Alabama looked, I just felt the flip was going to happen in this game and that Georgia was going to get the win. And I still feel I think it's going to be very close. I think it's going to be very fun and very competitive. But I think Georgia finds a way to win it.
Damian?
I'm going Alabama. I think Alabama finds a way. It's close all the way until the fourth quarter. And there's going to be a position where Georgia settles for a field goal when they're going to need a touchdown. And Alabama capitalizes on the touchdown. Late score. Give me Alabama.
All right, there you go. If you're looking to get into a new fishing boat, whether you're on the competition circuit or just like a casting line in your spare time, Bass Boat headquarters is Airport Marine. They've got 5 of the top 10 bass boat brands in Alabama, including the #1 Skeeter. They also have 5 brands of pontoons. You won't find a bigger variety of boats anywhere around, including plenty of 2024 model Skeeters. Get in now for rebates up to $6,500. Find the most brands and your best deal at Airport Marine, your bass and Skeeter boat headquarters. Airport Marine, I-65, exit 234. You guys have a great weekend. Enjoy the games. Greg, enjoy your time in Tuscaloosa after your time in Oxford. And I got to go get to meetings, but we'll catch up next week.
Have fun,
See you,
pal.
brother.
Go say hey to Sark for us.
I will.
All right. Love it. Tell Lebby we're thinking about him. Because it's tough sledding right now in Starkville. Look, a couple things. I still think there's a little more to unpack with the Georgia-Bama game. I'm going to tell you exactly how I think this game will go. By the way, the last time this game was played, we nailed it. Like in every possible way, told you exactly how it was going to go, and this is exactly how it went down. So we'll break it down next and give you TD's Fine Furniture Super Helpful Game of the Weekend, give you a couple picks. You name it, we got it here in the final segment of the week right here on Mac and Cube in the Morning. Welcome back to McElroy Cubic in the Morning, final segment of the week. It's one of our favorite segments, by the way, TD's Fine Furniture Super Sofa Game of the Weekend coming up here in just a minute. But before we get to that, I'll tell you about my friends at Bill Smith Buick GMC. They're the very best. I mean, they're the GMC Deal of the Year, national champs, 7 times national champs. So, going to watch Bama, Georgia this weekend. Winner, going to have the inside track towards the national championship. Well, at GMC dealers, you already know who won. It's Bill Smith Buick. They've won 4 in a row, 7 overall. They're amazing, and that's why 75% of their business is repeat customers, because you have better deals like this one, a GMC Sierra 1500 SLT 4x4 X31 loaded with the off-road package, $68,000 is the list price. You get it for $55,110. Deals like that to keep it coming back. I'm telling you, man. Andy Cole, Jonathan Yeager, they go the extra mile to make sure you have a great experience when you shop with Bill Smith. Take a short drive up to Coleman. You'll be glad you did. You also can shop online, have it delivered right to your driveway at Bill Smith Buick, GMC.com. All right, a couple things about Bama, Georgia. All right, quickly. It won't take long here. A lot's been made about Kalen DeBoer in this situation. I heard the 3-man front promo. I don't know if I'm going to go as far as say Bama will dominate Georgia. I think that feels aggressive. I think these teams match up really well against each other, and I think they're built to beat each other. And Kirby, when he put his roster together, it was to take advantage of Alabama, and when Coach Saban put this roster together, it was to beat Georgia. The identities, I think, were found as such. But DeBoer is new to this situation, but the guy's a giant killer. His record as an underdog, okay, as an underdog is outrageous. Absolutely outrageous. He is 5-1 outright as an underdog in his time at Washington. Beat Oregon twice, beat Texas twice, and Oregon State, where he was a dog. His only time that he lost was against Michigan, and Michigan had a significantly better roster. So when he's bringing a gun to a gunfight as opposed to a knife to a gunfight, I happen to think he's going to be in a really good spot. The question mark, like I've said in the past, Bama secondary. You have 9 out of their 12 players in the secondary, either first-year players or transfers. That is of concern in a big game. When things start going crazy, big games, you want to have veteran presence. Keon Sabb's that, Malachi Moore's that. So you have veterans, but I do think it's going to be on those guys to make sure everyone else around them's relaxed, comfortable, and in a good spot. You don't want to have busted coverages in the back end because that's cheap yards, that's cheap touchdowns. Will Bama get pressure without blitzing? We said it yesterday on the show. Bama has a blitz rate this year of 3.3%. That is the lowest in the FBS by nearly 5 points. And I think in order to affect Carson Beck, you have to pressure him. And if you can't pressure him without blitzing, if you can pressure him without blitzing, great. But it might be on Kane Womack to ramp up the pressure packages a little bit, because that hasn't been who they've been this year. It doesn't mean that won't be who they are. And then finally, key turnover, man. Think about this game. It always seems to come down to the mistake made by the losing team. Last year, big turnover deep in their own end, kind of an unforced turnover. I believe they fumbled the snap or fumbled an exchange, or they tried to do that handoff at end around. Yeah, like that end around reverse, and they just messed it all up. Bama recovers, they go in, and that was the deciding score. So a huge mistake in this game could flip it on its head. I'm taking Bama. I think it's a high-scoring game. I expect both offenses to play well and both defenses to be a little bit inconsistent, probably give up some big plays. So, Damian, where are you heading?
Oh, of course. I'm going Alabama. Roll Tide.
Of course. Okay.
Roll Tide. No, but I agree with you, too. I think it's going to be something that's going to happen, and boom, Alabama takes advantage of it, light them up.
I've felt for a week and a half that Georgia gets this game. I'm still starting to kind of get convinced that Alabama wins, but I'm not gonna change my mind now. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and I'll gladly eat the crow with ketchup, apparently, because that's what makes it go down better. But I just think Georgia is going to come out playing significantly better. You're not getting the Georgia that you got against Kentucky. You're going to get Georgia's probably best game of the season. And I just think, I don't know if Alabama's at their best right now. That's why I think Georgia gets it.
Totally get it. It's going to be a great game. Let's do TD's Fine Furniture Super Sofa Game of the Weekend. You can watch all these games on a super sofa from TD's Fine Furniture, with a store the size of 2 football fields and the largest selection of furniture in Alabama. They buy in bulk, so you get the best prices. TD's Fine Furniture in Summerton. You know where I'm going, Bama, Georgia. Going to be an amazing game. 7:30 from Tuscaloosa Eastern time, so 6:30 here local. And it's number 2 versus number 4. What more could you ask for? The 2 best programs in the sport. Teeing it up there in Bryant-Denny.
Well, of course, I think that everybody would pick
Correct, right.
Alabama, Georgia.
Yeah.
But just for a little something after college game day, Greg, you're going to be on the call for this one. Ole Miss and Kentucky. Let's see of all these offenses, all the offensive numbers that Ole Miss has been able to put up. Against who? They ain't played nobody. Well, they got Kentucky across the other side. We've seen what Kentucky's been able to do defensively. Let's get this show on the road at 11 o'clock on ABC. Kentucky and Ole Miss. That is my TD's Fine Furniture Super Sofa game of the weekend.
For me, excluding Alabama and Auburn, excluding Alabama and Georgia, because obviously I'm going to go 2:30 ABC, or you can listen on Jocks 100.5 if you happen to be out and about. It's Auburn versus Oklahoma. This is a must-win game for both real teams. More so for Auburn because both teams have quarterback questions. Both teams have defensive questions. There's a lot going on, and neither team really can afford to lose. So give me Auburn, Oklahoma as my TD's Fine Furniture Super Sofa game of the weekend.
It's a good one. There's a lot of good ones this weekend, I might add. Auburn, Oklahoma is going to be excellent. Louisville at Notre Dame. We didn't even hardly talk about that.
Yeah.
That's a good game, man. No one's talking about that. Oklahoma State, Kansas State, the bounce back bowl. Both teams losing big last week, needing this one to stay afloat. In the Big 12, there's just a lot of very intriguing action coming up. And I'll tell you this one. Be careful, LSU.
Uh-oh.
Be careful. The Jags are coming to town. LSU's a 3-touchdown favorite, but the Jags can score. So South Alabama, be careful. Tigers, be careful. Appreciate you guys. Thanks to everybody that joined us this whole week. Thanks to Cole. Thanks to Damian. Thanks to Saber. We'll pass it on over to 3-Man Front. Should be a great 4 hours to kind of tune in. I want to hear how Bama's going to dominate Georgia. Listen in next, right here on Jocks.